When a billionaire CEO runs from her own wedding and shows up at your doorstep in tears, you have two choices. Close the door on the chaos or let her shatter everything you've built to protect your daughter. Ethan Cole never imagined his quiet life as a single father would collide with corporate power, scandal, and a love that could destroy them both. But when Charlotte Vale, the woman he'd secretly loved for years, appeared on his porch in a wedding dress, running from a billion-dollar merger and a groom she never loved, the choice became impossible. Stay until the end to see how one knock on the door rewrote two destinies. Hit that like button and comment your city so I can see how far this story reaches across the world. The rain started at 6:47 p.m., exactly 13 minutes before Ethan Cole's entire world changed. He didn't know that yet, of course. At that moment, he was doing what he did every Saturday evening, standing in his modest kitchen, flour dusting his worn jeans, teaching his 5-year-old daughter how to roll pizza dough without it sticking to her tiny fingers. Like this, Daddy? Lily pressed her palms into the soft dough, her tongue poking out in concentration the way she always did when she was trying hard at something. Perfect, sweetheart. You're a natural. Ethan smiled, watching her work, his heart doing that thing it always did when he looked at her. Equal parts overwhelming love and quiet terror that he might somehow fail her. Being a single parent meant carrying both those weights every single day. The kitchen timer chimed. Okay, pizza architect, let's get this masterpiece in the oven before... The doorbell rang. Ethan froze. They weren't expecting anyone. They never were. His social circle had shrunk to nearly nothing since Sarah died 3 years ago. Not because people didn't care, but because Ethan had learned that grief made others uncomfortable. It was easier to be alone than to watch friends struggle for things to say around the massive absence his wife had left behind. I'll get it. Lily started to hop down from her stool. No, baby, you stay here with the pizza. I've got it. Ethan wiped his hands on a towel, glancing at the clock. 7 p.m. on a Saturday. Probably someone selling something, or maybe Mrs. Chen from next door needing to borrow. He opened the door, and there, standing on his modest front porch under the steady rain, was Charlotte Vale, his boss, his CEO, the woman whose company employed 15,000 people across 3 continents, the woman whose face graced business magazines with headlines like "The New Face of Tech Leadership" and how Charlotte Vale built a billion-dollar empire before 35. The woman who should have been getting married right now at the Grand Meridian Hotel downtown to Marcus Ashford III, heir to the Ashford financial dynasty, in what the society pages had been calling the wedding of the decade. Instead, she was on Ethan's porch, in her wedding dress, crying. For a moment, Ethan's brain simply refused to process what his eyes were seeing. This couldn't be real. Charlotte Vale didn't cry. Charlotte Vale didn't show up unannounced at employees' houses. Charlotte Vale certainly didn't stand in the rain in what had to be a $50,000 wedding gown, mascara streaking down her face, looking like her entire world had just collapsed. Charlotte? His voice came out rough, disbelieving. What? How did you? I couldn't do it. Her words tumbled out in a broken whisper. I stood there at the end of the aisle, and I looked at Marcus. And I thought about spending the next 50 years pretending, and I couldn't. So I left. Ethan stood frozen, his hand still gripping the doorframe. Behind him, he could hear Lily humming to herself in the kitchen, oblivious to the magnitude of what was happening at their front door. You left, he repeated stupidly, his mind still trying to catch up. Your wedding. You left your wedding. There were 200 people there, my entire board, the Ashford family, half the tech industry, photographers, a string quartet. She laughed, but it was a hollow, broken sound. I got all the way to the altar. The officiant was about to start, and then I looked at Marcus's face, and I realized he wasn't even nervous. He wasn't excited or scared or emotional. He looked satisfied, like he'd just closed a successful business deal, which I suppose he had. The rain was soaking through her dress now, the delicate lace darkening, the train pooling in water on his porch. Ethan knew he should invite her in, get her out of the rain, but his body wouldn't move. 3 years of careful distance, of professional boundaries, of never letting himself acknowledge what he felt when she walked into a meeting or sent him a late-night email or laughed at something during a presentation. All of that careful control was crumbling, and he didn't know how to stop it. How did you get here? he finally managed. I drove, left my phone in the bridal suite, grabbed my purse and car keys, and just drove. She met his eyes then, and Ethan felt something in his chest crack open. I know this is insane. I know I shouldn't be here, but I didn't know where else to go. Everyone at that wedding, everyone in my life, they all wanted this marriage. They all thought it made perfect sense. The merger, the alliance, the power consolidation. No one asked if I wanted it, except... She trailed off, but Ethan knew. His hands went cold despite the warm evening air. Except what? He asked, even though part of him knew he shouldn't. Part of him knew that whatever she said next would change everything. Except you. Charlotte's voice dropped to barely a whisper. 3 weeks ago, when Marcus and I had that dinner meeting to discuss the merger details, and you were there taking notes. Do you remember what you asked me afterward? Ethan remembered. They'd been alone in the conference room, putting away the presentation materials. Marcus had left early for another engagement, the way he always did. Charlotte had seemed distracted, staring out the window at the city lights below. I asked if you were happy, Ethan said quietly. Everyone else asked if the deal was good, if the merger made sense, if the families were satisfied with the prenup terms. But you... Her voice caught. You asked if I was happy. And I couldn't answer you. I stood there, and I couldn't say yes. Charlotte! I love you, Ethan. The words hung in the air between them, impossible and earth-shattering. Somewhere in the distance, thunder rumbled. Or maybe that was just the sound of Ethan's carefully constructed life beginning to collapse. You can't say that, he heard the panic in his own voice. You can't just show up here and say that. You don't know what you're saying. You're upset. You're overwhelmed. You just left your wedding. I've been in love with you for 2 years. Charlotte took a step closer, and Ethan could see she was shaking. Since that product launch in Seattle when you fell asleep in the airport terminal and I found you using your jacket as a pillow, you woke up and the first thing you did was check your phone for a text from your daughter's babysitter. Not email, not the stock prices, not the launch numbers. You checked to make sure Lily had eaten her vegetables at dinner. That's just being a parent. Marcus has never asked me about my day unless it affected the merger. He's never noticed when I'm tired or stressed or excited about something. He's never looked at me the way you do when you think I can't see you. She was close enough now that Ethan could see the individual raindrops caught in her hair, could see the desperation in her eyes. I'm not here because I'm confused or upset. I'm here because I finally got honest with myself. I can't marry someone I don't love when I'm in love with someone else. I can't do it, Ethan, even if that someone else doesn't love me back. Daddy? Lily's small voice cut through the tension. Who's at the door? Ethan turned to find his daughter peering around the corner, curiosity bright in her eyes. When she spotted Charlotte in her elaborate wedding dress, Lily's mouth formed a perfect O of wonder. Are you a princess? Lily breathed. Despite everything, the chaos, the impossibility, the world-altering confession still ringing in his ears, Ethan watched Charlotte's face transform. The powerful CEO dissolved, replaced by something softer and infinitely more genuine as she knelt down, heedless of her ruined dress, to Lily's eye level. Not a princess, sweetheart, just someone who made a very important decision tonight. Charlotte's voice was gentle, warm in a way Ethan had only heard in rare, unguarded moments. You must be Lily. Your dad talks about you all the time. He does? Lily glanced at Ethan, then back at Charlotte with a shy smile. He talks about you too. He says you're very smart and work really hard. Lily, Ethan said quickly, heat flooding his face. Why don't you go check on the pizza, make sure it's not... Oh, the pizza! Lily gasped and scrambled back toward the kitchen. Charlotte stood slowly, and when she looked at Ethan, something in her expression made his throat tight. You talk about me? You're my boss. Of course I talk about work. Ethan. She said his name like a prayer and a plea all at once. Please, can I come in? Just for a little while? I promise I'll leave. I'll figure everything out. I just need a moment to think clearly, and I can't do that anywhere else. Every rational part of Ethan's brain was screaming at him to say no, to be professional, to protect himself and his daughter from the inevitable scandal, the complications, the sheer impossibility of whatever this was. Charlotte Vale was his boss, for God's sake. She was a billionaire CEO who lived in a completely different stratosphere. She'd just left her wedding, to a man whose family probably had lawyers on speed dial. This was a disaster waiting to happen. But when he looked at her standing there, vulnerable and honest and terrified in a way he'd never seen her before, all his careful rationality evaporated. "Come in," he heard himself say. "Get out of the rain." 20 minutes later, Charlotte sat at Ethan's kitchen table wrapped in his oversized Georgetown hoodie and a pair of his sweatpants. Her wedding dress draped over the shower rod in his bathroom like a ghost of the life she'd just abandoned. Her hair hung damp around her shoulders, face scrubbed clean of the ruined makeup. She looked nothing like the polished executive who commanded boardrooms and made Forbes lists. She looked real. Lily had taken to Charlotte immediately, the way children sometimes do with people they instinctively trust. She sat beside her now, chattering about the pizza they'd made in her kindergarten class, and how her goldfish Mr. Bubbles could do tricks if you tapped the glass the right way. Ethan stood at the counter, ostensibly getting plates and napkins, but really just trying to process the surreal reality of having Charlotte Vale in his kitchen. His phone had been buzzing nonstop in his pocket, probably news alerts, office emails, the world responding to whatever chaos Charlotte's departure had caused. He ignored it all. "Daddy makes the best pizza," Lily was saying seriously. "Better than the restaurant ones. He puts the cheese on before the sauce sometimes. Is that wrong?" Charlotte smiled, and Ethan felt his heart do something complicated in his chest. "I think pizza rules are meant to be broken. Innovation starts with questioning traditional methods." "Like at your company." Lily bounced in her seat. "Daddy says you make things that help people, like the tablets for schools that don't have lots of money." "That's right," Charlotte's voice softened. "We try to make technology that makes life better for everyone, not just people who already have everything." "That's nice." Lily tilted her head, studying Charlotte with the unnerving directness of 5-year-old children. "Are you sad? You look like you might be sad." The question hung in the air. Ethan saw Charlotte's composure waver, saw her blink rapidly. "I am a little sad," Charlotte admitted, "but also relieved. Sometimes the right choice is still hard to make. Like when Daddy said we couldn't get a puppy because our apartment doesn't allow them, but he was still sad about it?" "Exactly like that." Lily nodded sagely, then patted Charlotte's hand with the solemn gravity children reserve for moments they sense are important. "It's okay to be sad and happy at the same time. Daddy says that's called being a grown-up." Charlotte let out a surprised laugh that sounded half like a sob. "Your dad is a smart man." "I know," Lily said matter-of-factly. Then, with the mercurial attention span of childhood, "Do you want to see my drawing of Mr. Bubbles? I made him purple because normal goldfish are boring. I would love to see your purple goldfish." As Lily raced off to her room, the sudden quiet felt loud. Ethan brought plates to the table, acutely aware of Charlotte's eyes following his movements. "She's wonderful," Charlotte said softly. "You've done an incredible job with her." "She makes it easy." Ethan set the pizza between them, the domestic normalcy of the action almost absurd given the circumstances. "Charlotte, we need to talk about what happens next. Your phone is going to be ringing off the hook. The wedding, the merger." "I know." She stared at the pizza without seeing it. By now, Marcus's family is probably already strategizing damage control. The board is panicking. Our stock is going to open down on Monday. She looked up at him, eyes clear despite everything. "I don't care." "You don't?" Ethan sat down heavily. "Charlotte, that's your company, your life's work. You can't just watch me." There was steel in her voice now, the executive determination that had built an empire. "For 10 years, I've made every decision based on what was best for Vale Innovations. Every relationship, every public appearance, every sacrifice. The merger with Ashford Industries made perfect sense on paper. Access to their financial networks, their political connections, their old money respectability. Marcus was the logical choice. Then why? Because logic isn't enough." She leaned forward, intense. "I built this company because I wanted to prove that business could be different. That you could be successful and ethical, powerful and kind. But somewhere along the way, I forgot to apply that philosophy to my own life. I optimized everything, including my own happiness, for market performance." Ethan wanted to reach across the table, to take her hand, but he kept his arms locked at his sides. And you think walking away from your wedding changes that? I think it's the first honest thing I've done in years. Charlotte's voice dropped. Ethan, do you know why I promoted you to senior product manager last year? He blinked at the change of subject. Because the educational tablet line needed strong leadership and I had the vision for it? Because in every meeting, you were the only person who asked about the end users before asking about the profit margins. She smiled sadly. Everyone else wanted to know the ROI, the market share projections, the competitive advantage. You wanted to know if the teachers would actually find it useful, if the kids would enjoy learning on it, if it would genuinely make a difference. That's just good product design. It's humanity. Charlotte cut him off. It's what I built this company on before I got so caught up in growth targets and shareholder value that I forgot what mattered. And every time I saw you fight for the things that actually mattered, I felt it. That reminder of who I used to be, who I wanted to be. The oven timer beeped. Lily's pizza was ready. Ethan stood automatically, grateful for something to do with his hands, but Charlotte stood too, following him to the kitchen. I'm not asking you to fix this, she said to his back as he pulled the pizza from the oven. I'm not asking you to save me or make decisions for me. I know what I've done tonight is going to have consequences, massive career-threatening consequences. But Ethan, she waited until he turned to face her. I need you to know that when I stood at that altar, it wasn't impulse that made me leave. It was clarity. For the first time in years, I saw clearly. And what I saw was a future where I married Marcus and spent decades wondering, what if? What if I'd been brave enough to choose what I actually wanted instead of what made sense to everyone else? And what do you want? Ethan heard himself ask, even though he knew the answer might destroy him. Honestly? Charlotte's smile was tremulous but real. Right now, in this moment, I want to eat pizza with you and your daughter and not think about the board or the stock price or the headlines. I want one evening where I'm not Charlotte Vale, CEO, where I'm just Charlotte. Lily burst back into the kitchen, clutching a piece of construction paper. I found it! Look, the purple goldfish! The drawing was enthusiastically abstract, mostly purple scribbles with googly eyes glued on. It was perfect. That is magnificent, Charlotte said seriously, accepting the artwork like it was a priceless gallery piece. The use of purple really captures his personality. And these googly eyes? Genius. Lily beamed. You can keep it if you want. Really? I would be honored. Charlotte looked at the drawing with such genuine delight that Ethan felt something in his chest crack open even further. They ate pizza at the kitchen table, Lily dominating the conversation with kindergarten drama and goldfish updates and a detailed explanation of why her favorite color had changed from pink to green. Charlotte listened with complete attention, asking follow-up questions, laughing at Lily's jokes, looking more relaxed than Ethan had ever seen her. This was dangerous, he realized. Not the scandal or the professional complications or even the impossibility of their different worlds. This, watching Charlotte fit so naturally into the quiet evening rhythm he and Lily had built, seeing his daughter light up with the attention, feeling the sharp pull of want mixed with terror in his chest, this was the real danger. Because it would be so easy to pretend, to let himself believe that a billionaire CEO could actually want this life. That Charlotte's confession on the porch had been something more than the emotional fallout of a traumatic day. That somehow, impossibly, this could work. But Ethan had learned the hard way that life didn't work like that. Sarah's death had taught him that love didn't conquer all, that wanting something badly enough didn't make it possible, that fairy tales were fiction for a reason. After dinner, Lily started nodding off at the table, the excitement of the evening catching up with her. Ethan scooped her up, felt her burrow into his shoulder with the trusting weight only children can give. Say goodnight to our guests, sweetheart. Lily lifted her head long enough to wave sleepily at Charlotte. Will you come back and visit us? Charlotte's eyes met Ethan's over Lily's head, and in them he saw the same fear he felt, that this fragile moment couldn't possibly survive contact with the real world. I hope so, Charlotte said softly. Ethan carried Lily to her room, tucked her into bed surrounded by her army of stuffed animals, kissed her forehead. She was asleep before he finished pulling her blanket up. When he returned to the kitchen, Charlotte was standing at his window, looking out at the rain-soaked street. She'd found her phone somehow, probably from her purse, and it sat on the counter, dark and silent. She'd turned it off. 63 missed calls, she said without turning around. When I turned it on for 2 seconds to check. Texts from my assistant, the board members, Marcus's father, my own father. She laughed hollowly. Also 3 from my wedding planner asking if I wanted to preserve the cake. Charlotte, I've destroyed everything, haven't I? She finally turned to face him. The merger is dead. The Ashford family is going to bury me in lawsuits. The board is going to call for my removal. The company I built from nothing is going to suffer because I couldn't keep my personal feelings under control. Then why did you do it? Ethan asked, not unkindly, but needing to understand. Because I looked at Marcus, and I looked at the life stretching out in front of me, and I realized, her voice caught, I realized I'd rather lose the company than lose myself completely, and I'd already lost so much of myself trying to become the person everyone needed me to be. She moved toward him, and Ethan's heart started hammering. They were alone now, Lily asleep down the hall, the evening stretching between them full of possibility and danger. These past 2 years, Charlotte continued, every time I had to make a hard decision, I thought about what you would do. When investors pushed for layoffs, I remembered how you fought to keep your whole team employed during the restructure. When we got that offer to sell user data, I thought about how you'd asked if it was what our customers would want. You became my compass without even knowing it. Ethan struggled for words. I'm not some moral authority, Charlotte. I'm just a guy trying to do right by my daughter and make products that don't make the world worse. You're giving me too much credit. No. She stepped closer, close enough that he could see the flecks of gold in her eyes. I'm finally giving you the credit you deserve. And I'm finally being honest about what I want. What you want right now, Ethan made himself say, even though it hurt. Charlotte, you've had a traumatic day. You're not thinking clearly. Tomorrow, when you've had time to process, when the reality sets in, tomorrow I'll still love you. She said it simply, like a fact. Next week I'll still love you. Next year I'll still love you. This isn't trauma or impulse or confusion, Ethan. This is the clearest I've thought in years. Your company will survive or it won't. But either way, I'd rather face whatever comes knowing I was honest about how I feel. Ethan's phone chose that moment to buzz in his pocket, once, twice, 3 times in rapid succession. He pulled it out with shaking hands, text from his sister. Call me. Is Charlotte Vale really at your house? Text from his coworker, James. Dude, the news is saying she ran from her wedding. Do you know anything? News alert. Vale Innovations CEO, Charlotte Vale, missing after abandoning wedding to Marcus Ashford III, stock in freefall. It's starting, he said quietly, showing her the phone. Charlotte glanced at it and shrugged with a calmness that couldn't possibly be real. Let it. Charlotte, you need to think about this. Your reputation, your company, your shareholders are not worth more than my soul. She met his eyes steadily. I spent my 20s building an empire. I spent my early 30s maintaining it. I'm 35 years old, Ethan, and I've never made a single major life decision based on what I actually wanted. It was always about the company, the investors, the image. When do I get to choose for myself? But why me? The question burst out of him, raw and honest. Charlotte, you could have anyone. Someone from your world, someone who understands that life, someone who can stand beside you at galas and board meetings without feeling like an imposter. I'm a widower living in a 2-bedroom rental with my 5-year-old daughter. I clip coupons. I buy my jeans at Target. My idea of a fancy dinner is the place with the slightly nicer pizza. We're from completely different worlds. So? Charlotte's eyes flashed. Different worlds, same values. You want to know why you? Because you're the only person in my life who sees me as Charlotte first and Vale second. Because you made me laugh during that horrible budget meeting by doodling a cartoon of Johnson from finance as a fire-breathing dragon. Because when I worked a 16-hour day and everyone else just asked if I closed the deal, you asked if I'd eaten. Because your daughter draws purple goldfish and you display it on your fridge like it's art. Her voice softened. Because when I imagine myself happy, genuinely, bone-deep happy, it looks like this kitchen, this life, you. Ethan closed his eyes, trying to hold on to his carefully constructed defenses, but they were crumbling. If we do this, if we even try this, it's going to be a nightmare. The press, the speculation, the accusations that you left Marcus for me, that I manipulated you or coerced you somehow. They're going to destroy both of us. Probably, Charlotte agreed. Marcus's family has powerful lawyers and a lot of motivation to paint this as my fault, as some kind of mental breakdown or ethical violation. The board might force me out. We could both lose our jobs. The scandal could follow us for years. And you're okay with that? I'm okay with being honest for once in my life. She reached out, tentative, and took his hand. Her palm was warm against his. I'm okay with fighting for something real instead of settling for something convenient. I'm okay with whatever consequences come from choosing authenticity over image management. Ethan looked down at their joined hands. 3 years of loneliness, of telling himself he didn't deserve a second chance at happiness, of focusing only on Lily because it was safe. And now here was Charlotte offering him everything he'd been afraid to even want. What about Lily? He heard himself ask. She's been through so much already, losing her mom, dealing with my grief, adapting to a life that's just the two of us. I can't put her through a media circus. I can't risk her stability for love? Charlotte finished gently. Ethan, I would never ask you to choose between me and your daughter. She comes first. She should come first, but maybe... She squeezed his hand. Maybe she doesn't have to lose anything. Maybe she could gain something. Someone who cares about both of you. Someone who wants to be part of your lives, not disrupt them. You don't know what you're saying. But even as he said it, Ethan felt his resistance wavering. You're a CEO. You work 80-hour weeks. You travel constantly. You have a life that doesn't have room for kindergarten pickups and bedtime stories and sick days where someone needs to stay home with a kid who has a fever. Then I'll make room. Charlotte said it with the same determination she brought to impossible product launches and hostile board meetings. I'll restructure my schedule. I'll delegate more. I'll prioritize differently. People do it all the time. Balance career and family. Why can't I? Because you're Charlotte Vale. Ethan pulled his hand away, needing the distance to think clearly. You don't delegate. You don't compromise. You're all in on everything you do, which is what makes you brilliant. But it also means you don't know how to half-ass anything. And parenting, real parenting, it requires half-assing a lot of things. Letting the dishes pile up because bedtime is more important. Ordering takeout 3 nights in a row because you're too tired to cook. Missing opportunities because your kid has a school play. You can't optimize family life like a business strategy. I know that. Charlotte's voice was quiet but firm. I'm not naive enough to think I can just slot into your life without anything changing. But Ethan, I'm also not asking to move in tomorrow and play house. I'm asking for a chance, a real chance, not hidden or secret or apologized for. A chance to see if this thing between us is real, if it can survive outside this kitchen, if we can build something together. The rain had stopped while they talked. Through the window, Ethan could see the wet street gleaming under the streetlights. The world washed clean but fundamentally unchanged. He thought about Sarah, about the life they'd planned and lost. He thought about the promise he'd made to himself to protect Lily from any more pain. He thought about the careful, controlled existence he'd built where nothing could hurt them because nothing was allowed to matter too much. And then he looked at Charlotte, standing in his kitchen in his borrowed clothes, having walked away from a billion-dollar merger and a powerful family's expectations and the safe future everyone had planned for her. Walked away from all of it because she'd chosen honesty over comfort. One chance, he heard himself say. We do this honestly and carefully. We think about Lily first, always. And if at any point the scandal or the complications start to hurt her, we stop, no matter how we feel. Charlotte's face transformed, hope blazing so bright it almost hurt to look at. One chance, that's all I'm asking for. And we tell no one. Not yet. Ethan's mind was already racing ahead to the complications. Tomorrow, you go back to your life. You deal with the fallout from the wedding, you manage the board, you handle your family. We keep things professional at work. We figure out the personal stuff slowly, privately. Agreed. Charlotte stepped closer. But Ethan, for For tonight, before we have to go back to being CEO and employee, before the real world crashes in, can we just be Charlotte and Ethan? Two people who care about each other trying to figure out what that means? Before he could second-guess himself, before his carefully constructed defenses could rebuild, Ethan closed the distance between them. He didn't kiss her. That felt like too much, too fast, a line crossed that couldn't be uncrossed. Instead, he pulled her into a hug, felt her arms wrap around him, her face press into his shoulder. She was shaking, or maybe he was, or maybe they both were. "Thank you," she whispered against his neck, "for not closing the door, for listening, for giving me a chance." "Don't thank me yet," Ethan said, but his arms tightened around her. "We have no idea how hard this is going to be." "I know." She pulled back just enough to look at him, and her smile was tremulous, but real. "But for the first time in years, I'm looking forward to finding out." They stood like that for a long moment, holding on to each other and the fragile possibility between them, while outside the rain-washed world turned and tomorrow waited with all its complications and consequences. Neither of them noticed the car that had pulled up across the street an hour ago, or the photographer inside who'd already sent 3 photos to the tabloid that had hired him to track down the runaway bride. By morning, the picture would be everywhere. Charlotte Vale, missing CEO, in the window of a modest suburban house, in the arms of an unidentified man, and the nightmare Ethan had predicted would begin in earnest. But that was tomorrow's problem. Tonight, in this kitchen, they had something more precious than all Charlotte's billions or all of Ethan's careful defenses. They had honesty and hope, and the chance, however slim, that sometimes the bravest decision was choosing who you wanted to climb with, regardless of how impossible the mountain looked. The photograph hit the internet at 6:23 a.m. Ethan woke to his phone vibrating so violently it fell off his nightstand. Still groggy, he grabbed it from the floor and squinted at the screen. 47 missed calls. 62 text messages. His email inbox showed 200-plus unread messages, the number climbing even as he watched. His sister Rachel's name dominated his recent calls. He pressed dial with a sense of dread already pooling in his stomach. She answered before the first ring finished. "Please tell me that's not you in the photo." "What photo?" But even as he asked, Ethan was pulling up his news app with shaking fingers. There it was, top story on every major outlet. The image was grainy but unmistakable, taken through his kitchen window, Charlotte in his arms, her face turned into his shoulder, the intimacy of the moment captured and frozen and broadcast to millions. The headlines competed for maximum damage. Runaway bride found, Vale CEO. Spotted in mystery man's arms hours after abandoning wedding. Charlotte Vale's secret affair? New photos suggest wedding sabotage. From altar to another man, inside Charlotte Vale's shocking betrayal. "Oh no," Ethan breathed. "Oh no, no, no." "Ethan," Rachel's voice was tight with worry. "Tell me what's happening. The articles are saying she's been having an affair with an employee. They're saying you manipulated her, that you sabotaged her wedding for a... None of that is true." Ethan sat up, his mind racing. "She came here last night after she left the wedding. She was upset. She needed someone to talk to. And you just happened to be that someone? Ethan, do you have any idea how this looks?" He did. He could see it clearly now, the narrative already forming, impossible to fight. Charlotte Vale, powerful CEO, corrupted by a subordinate. Ethan Cole, ambitious employee, seducing his boss to climb the corporate ladder. The optics were devastating. "I have to call her," he said, already pulling up Charlotte's number. "Wait, do you even have her personal number? Ethan, exactly how close are you two?" "I'll call you back." He ended the call before Rachel could protest. Charlotte answered on the first ring. "You've seen it." Everyone's seen it. Ethan moved to his window, carefully staying back from the glass. The street below was empty, but for how long? "Charlotte, there's a photographer who knows where I live. This is going to get worse." "It already has." Her voice was tight, controlled, the CEO voice she used in crisis meetings. "My phone hasn't stopped. My father, the board members, Marcus's lawyers, they're calling for an emergency session. The stock opened down 18%. 18%. Ethan did the math automatically. Billions in market value, gone in hours, because Charlotte had been photographed in his arms. "I'm so sorry," he started. But she cut him off. Don't. Don't apologize for something we both chose. A pause. Ethan, I need you to be prepared. This is going to get ugly. Marcus's family has already released a statement claiming I've been having an affair for months. They're painting me as unstable, unfit for leadership, and they're going to come after you next. As if on cue, his phone buzzed with a new notification. An email from Vale Innovations HR. Subject line, mandatory meeting, urgent. They're calling me in, he said. I know, I got copied on it. Charlotte's voice hardened. Listen to me carefully. When you go in there, you tell the truth. Don't try to protect me by lying or downplaying anything. The truth is our only defense. The truth is that my boss showed up at my house in a wedding dress and told me she loved me. Ethan laughed, but it sounded hollow. That's not exactly going to help either of us. The truth is also that nothing inappropriate happened between us before last night. That I made my own decision to leave that wedding. That you didn't manipulate or coerce me. Her voice softened slightly. The truth matters, Ethan, even when it's complicated. A small voice from down the hall. Daddy? Ethan's heart clenched. Lily. He'd been so focused on the immediate crisis that he hadn't thought about how to explain this to his daughter. How did you tell a 5-year-old that the nice lady in the pretty dress had accidentally made both their lives infinitely more complicated? I have to go, he told Charlotte. Lily's awake. Take care of her first. Always. A beat of silence. And Ethan? Whatever happens today, whatever they say or threaten or demand, we face it honestly. Together. Together. The word hung between them, a promise and a risk all at once. Lily appeared in his doorway, her stuffed rabbit tucked under one arm, hair sticking up in sleep-wild tufts. Is the pretty lady still here? No, sweetheart. She had to go home. Ethan scooped her up, breathing in the baby shampoo smell of her hair, anchoring himself in this one pure, uncomplicated thing in his life. How about we make pancakes? With chocolate chips? Sure, baby, with chocolate chips. While Lily ate breakfast, Ethan scrolled through the news coverage with growing horror. The stories had evolved in just the past hour, each one more sensationalized than the last. Someone had found his LinkedIn profile, dug up his employment history, noted the promotion Charlotte had given him last year. The implication was clear and damning. He'd slept his way up the corporate ladder. One tabloid had already tracked down his late wife's obituary, spinning Sarah's death into the narrative. Widower seeks comfort in boss's arms. Another had interviewed a former coworker who claimed Ethan had always been ambitious and too friendly with senior leadership. His phone rang again. This time, an unknown number. Mr. Cole? A crisp female voice he didn't recognize. This is Jennifer Martinez from the New York Times. I'm doing a piece on Charlotte Vale's departure from her wedding, and I was hoping to get your comment on the nature of your relationship. Ethan hung up. Immediately, another call. Then another. The press had his number. Daddy, your phone is being loud. Lily looked up from her pancakes, a chocolate chip stuck to her cheek. I know, baby. I'm going to turn it off for a bit, okay? He switched the phone to airplane mode, but the damage was already done. They'd found him. And if they had his number, they probably had his address, too. The knock on the door came 20 minutes later. Through the peephole, Ethan saw a young woman with a camera around her neck, a man beside her holding a microphone. Behind them, a news van was pulling up to the curb. Daddy, someone's at the door! Lily started to hop down from her chair. Stay in the kitchen, Lily. Ethan kept his voice calm, but his heart was hammering. Don't come to the door. Another knock, harder this time. Mr. Cole, we just want to ask a few questions about your relationship with Charlotte Vale. How long have you two been involved? Did you encourage her to leave Marcus Ashford? Ethan backed away from the door, mind racing. He couldn't leave, not with reporters outside. But he couldn't stay here either, not with Lily. She didn't understand what was happening, but she would soon. Kids at school would say things. Parents would whisper. His quiet daughter, who'd already lost her mother, was about to become the center of a media circus. His phone, still in airplane mode, showed dozens of notifications from before he'd shut it off. He scrolled through them with shaking hands, looking for anything useful, until he found a text from his coworker James sent 2 hours ago. Dude, I don't know what's going on, but my brother works in security at Vail. He says they're planning to suspend you pending investigation. Lawyer up, now.
Lipis sa term.
Suspend him. Of course. Vail Innovations had to distance themselves from the scandal, and that meant removing Ethan from the equation as quickly as possible. Never mind that he'd worked there for 6 years, that his performance reviews were exemplary, that the educational tablet line he'd developed had won industry awards. One photograph, and everything he'd built was collapsing. Another knock, more insistent. A different voice now. Mr. Cole? We're from the Daily Observer. We're prepared to pay for an exclusive interview. 6 figures for your side of the story. 6 figures. Ethan's entire year's salary, just for talking. The offer was tempting for exactly 3 seconds before the implications sank in. They didn't want his side of the story. They wanted ammunition. Sound bites to twist, quotes to misrepresent, details to weaponize against Charlotte. He texted James back. Thanks for the heads up. Can you recommend a lawyer? The response came within seconds. Already asked my brother. He's sending contact info now. Lily wandered into the living room, confusion creasing her small face. Why won't you open the door, Daddy? Is it because of the pretty lady? Ethan knelt down to her level. Sweetheart, some people are very curious about our friend who visited last night. They want to ask questions about her, but we don't need to talk to them. So we're going to stay inside today and have a quiet day, okay? Like a fort day? Lily's eyes brightened. Fort days were their tradition for sick days or snow days, building blanket forts, watching movies, eating popcorn for lunch. Exactly like a fort day. His phone buzzed with a new message. An unknown number, but the message made his blood run cold. Mr. Cole, this is Richard Ashford, Marcus's father. We need to speak privately. This situation can be resolved quietly, or it can become much worse for you and your daughter. Your choice. Call me. The threat was barely veiled. Ethan's hand shook as he read it again. Your daughter. They were bringing Lily into this. Before he could process the implications, his phone rang. Rachel's number. He answered, moving into his bedroom and closing the door. Don't come to my place, Fimet, he said immediately. There are reporters outside. I know. I'm watching the news. Rachel's voice was strained. Ethan, this is bad. They're talking about you like you're some kind of predator who seduced a vulnerable woman. The Ashford family's lawyers are all over cable news calling for a full investigation into Vail Innovations' workplace ethics. I didn't do anything wrong. But even as he said it, Ethan knew it didn't matter. Perception was reality, and right now the perception was damning. I believe you, but Ethan, you need to think about Lily. If this gets worse, if there's a lawsuit or an investigation, if your name gets dragged through the mud, she's going to be affected. Kids are cruel. Parents talk. You need to protect her. I know. His voice cracked. I know, Rachel. I'm trying to figure out. Come stay with me. Pack a bag, use the back door, and come to my place. Get away from the reporters, get some space to think. It was a good plan. Rachel lived across town in a quiet neighborhood where no one would think to look for him. But even as he considered it, Ethan's phone buzzed with the promised lawyer contact from James's brother, followed immediately by another message, this one from Vail Innovations HR. Mr. Cole, your presence is required at Vail Innovations headquarters today at 2 p.m. for a mandatory meeting regarding your employment status. Failure to attend will be considered insubordination and grounds for immediate termination. Please come alone and be prepared to answer questions about your relationship with CEO Charlotte Vail. Come alone. Be prepared to answer questions. It sounded like an interrogation, not a meeting. He checked the time, 10:47 a.m. 3 hours to figure out what to do, to call a lawyer, to prepare some kind of defense for a situation that had spiraled completely out of his control in less than 12 hours. The knocking outside continued, joined now by voices calling his name, questions shouted through the door. How long had he been seeing Charlotte? Had he encouraged her to leave Marcus? Was it true he'd been promoted suspiciously fast? Did he have any comment on the allegations of impropriety? Lily appeared in his bedroom doorway, her rabbit clutched tight to her chest. Daddy, I'm scared. Why are those people yelling? Ethan pulled her into his arms, feeling her small body trembling. This was exactly what he'd feared. Lily had already been through so much. losing her mother, adjusting to a life with just the two of them, learning to feel safe again. And now, because he'd opened the door to Charlotte last night, because he'd let himself want something beyond the careful, contained existence he'd built, his daughter was scared. "It's okay, baby. They're just confused about something. They'll go away soon." He hoped it was true, even though he knew it probably wasn't. "How about we pack a bag and go visit Aunt Rachel for a few days? Would you like that?" Lily nodded against his chest, and Ethan felt something harden in his chest. Whatever happened next, whatever the board said, whatever the Ashfords threatened, whatever the media reported, he would protect Lily. Even if that meant walking away from Charlotte, from Vale Innovations, from everything. He called the lawyer James had recommended, a woman named Patricia Chen, who specialized in employment law. She answered on the second ring and, to his relief, already knew who he was. "Mr. Cole, I've been following the news. You need representation and you need it now. Can you meet me before this 2 p.m. meeting?" "I'll do better than that. I'll come with you. Don't say anything to anyone without me present. Don't respond to the press. Don't answer questions from HR. Don't try to defend yourself. Let me handle it." "I can't afford," Ethan started, but she cut him off. "We'll work out payment later. Right now, you need someone in your corner who knows how these things work. Trust me, Mr. Cole. Vale Innovations is about to try to make you the scapegoat for this entire situation. We're not going to let that happen." After he hung up, Ethan systematically packed bags for himself and Lily, moving through his apartment like he was already saying goodbye to it. Maybe he was. Depending on how the meeting went, he might not have a job by this evening. And without a job, he couldn't afford this place. The careful, stable life he'd built for Lily could crumble in a matter of hours. He was zipping up Lily's backpack when his phone rang again, Charlotte's number. "Don't go to that meeting," she said without preamble. "I have to. If I don't show up, they'll fire me for insubordination." "They're going to fire you anyway." Charlotte's voice was tight. "Ethan, I've been in damage control meetings all morning. The board wants a scapegoat, and you're it. They're planning to suspend you, launch an investigation into our inappropriate relationship, and then terminate you for ethics violations. But we didn't have a relationship before last night." "Doesn't matter. They'll find emails we exchanged, meetings we attended together, any interaction that could be spun as inappropriate. They'll interview your coworkers and dig up anyone who might say they suspected something. They'll build a case that makes you look like a predator and me like a victim, because that's the narrative that protects the company's reputation." Ethan sank onto his couch, the phone pressed to his ear. "So what am I supposed to do? Just let them destroy my career?" "No." Charlotte's voice hardened. "You show up with a lawyer, you tell the truth, and you don't let them intimidate you into admitting to something that didn't happen. And Ethan, I'm going to fight for you. I'm calling an emergency board meeting for this afternoon. I'm going to make them listen." "Charlotte, you can't. If you defend me, it'll just confirm what everyone's already thinking, that we've been having an affair, that I influenced you. I don't care what they think." The steel in her voice reminded him exactly why she'd built a billion-dollar empire before age 35. "I'm not going to let them railroad you because it's convenient. You didn't do anything wrong. I won't let you pay for my decisions." Through his window, Ethan could see more news vans arriving, reporters setting up cameras. His quiet street had become a circus. "I have to get Lily out of here," he said. "The reporters, she's scared, Charlotte. My daughter is scared because of this." He heard Charlotte's sharp intake of breath. "I'm sorry. I'm so sorry, Ethan. I never wanted to drag you into this, never wanted to hurt Lily. I know." And he did. But knowing didn't make it easier. "I'm taking her to my sister's place, then I'll meet with my lawyer before the Vale meeting. Promise me you won't let them bully you. Promise me you won't destroy your company trying to defend me." A long pause. "I can't promise that. Charlotte, if I have to choose between Vale Innovations and doing the right thing, I choose right. Every time. That's what you taught me." Before Ethan could respond, someone pounded on his front door hard enough to rattle the frame. A man's voice, authoritative and aggressive. "Mr. Cole, we have questions about your relationship with Charlotte Vale and allegations of workplace misconduct. We'd like to get your statement." "I have to go," Ethan said. "Be careful." "And Ethan?" Charlotte's voice softened. "Whatever happens in that meeting, whatever they say or threaten, remember that you didn't do anything wrong. Don't let them make you believe otherwise. Ethan ended the call and went to collect his daughter for what felt like an escape rather than a simple visit to Rachel's house. Getting past the reporters required calling the police for escort. 2 officers arrived within 20 minutes, creating a path through the crowd of cameras and microphones. Ethan held Lily close, her face buried in his shoulder, as questions pelted them like stones. Mr. Cole, how long have you been having an affair? Did you encourage Charlotte Vale to leave her fiancé? Is it true you've been sleeping with your boss for a promotion? What about your late wife? How would she feel about this? That last question hit like a physical blow. Ethan stumbled, his vision blurring with rage and grief. How dare they? How dare they invoke Sarah, weaponize her memory, use her death as ammunition for their stories? One of the officers, a woman with kind eyes, placed a hand on his shoulder. Keep walking. Don't engage. Almost there. They made it to his car. The officers held back the reporters while Ethan buckled Lily into her booster seat with shaking hands. She was crying now, confused and frightened by the chaos. It's okay, sweetheart. We're going to Aunt Rachel's. Everything's okay. But as he pulled away from the curb, cameras flashing in his rearview mirror, Ethan knew nothing was okay. And he had no idea how to make it okay again. Rachel met them at her door, pulling Lily into a hug before Ethan had even fully parked. I made cookies, and I set up the guest room with all your favorite stuffed animals. Lily managed a watery smile and disappeared inside with Rachel's guidance. Rachel turned back to Ethan, her expression grim. The news is saying Vale Innovations is considering terminating you. They're saying Charlotte might face a vote of no confidence from the board. This is escalating fast. I know. Ethan ran a hand through his hair. I have to meet with a lawyer in an hour, then face whatever witch hunt Vale has planned. Do you want me to come with you? He shook his head. Stay with Lily. That's more important. Patricia Chen's office was in a high-rise downtown, all glass and steel and the kind of expensive minimalism that usually intimidated Ethan. But Patricia herself was warm and direct, settling him in a leather chair with coffee and a legal pad. Tell me everything, she said. And I mean everything. When did you first develop feelings for Charlotte Vale? When did she first indicate feelings for you? Any meetings alone, any emails that could be construed as personal, any workplace interactions that might look questionable to an outside observer? Ethan talked for 45 minutes straight, laying out the truth. The gradual realization over 2 years that he cared about Charlotte as more than a boss. The careful distance he'd maintained precisely because he knew how inappropriate those feelings were. Charlotte's arrival at his house last night, the confession, the photograph. Patricia took notes, her expression neutral and professional. When he finished, she sat back and steepled her fingers. Okay, here's the situation. Vale. Innovations is going to try to paint you as a sexual harasser who pursued an inappropriate relationship with a superior. They'll claim you manipulated Charlotte, that you leveraged personal feelings to gain professional advantages. They'll point to your promotion last year as evidence. But that promotion was based on merit. My team's work doesn't matter. They'll make it look suspicious. And without clear documentation proving the promotion was purely merit-based, it becomes your word against theirs. She leaned forward. However, you have something they don't, the truth. And more importantly, you have me. I'm going to make sure they understand that if they try to scapegoat you, we'll file a wrongful termination suit that will make their current PR nightmare look like a minor inconvenience. I don't want to sue. I just want my job and my reputation back. Patricia's smile was sharp. Sometimes the threat of a lawsuit is enough. Now, let's talk strategy for this meeting. They arrived at Vale Innovations headquarters at 1:55 p.m. The building's lobby, usually bustling with employees and visitors, was eerily quiet. A security guard Ethan had known for years avoided eye contact as he checked them in. The meeting was in a small conference room on the executive floor, deliberately chosen, Patricia noted, to be intimidating. Waiting inside were 3 people: Margaret Harrison from HR, David Chen from legal, and surprisingly, Charlotte's father, Robert Vale, the company's founder who'd officially retired 5 years ago but still held significant influence with the board. Robert Vale was in his 60s, silver-haired and sharp-eyed, with the kind of presence that commanded rooms. He looked at Ethan with an expression that could have been carved from stone. Mr. Cole, please sit.
basi,
Patricia placed a hand on Ethan's arm, a reminder to let her do the talking. They sat across from the Vale representatives, the table between them feeling like a battleground. Margaret Harrison opened a folder, her face professionally neutral. Mr. Cole, we're here to discuss allegations of an inappropriate relationship between you and CEO Charlotte Vale. We've received multiple reports of concerning behavior. What reports? Patricia cut in. From whom? And what specific behavior are we discussing? Margaret's lips thinned. That's confidential. If you're basing disciplinary action on anonymous reports, my client has a right to know the specific allegations and their sources. We're not, David Chen started, but Robert Vale held up a hand, silencing him. Let's dispense with the legal posturing. His voice was calm but carried weight. Mr. Cole, I'll be direct. My daughter called off her wedding yesterday and was photographed in your arms last night. The optics are catastrophic. Our stock has dropped 23% in 24 hours. We've lost 3 major investors. The Ashford family is threatening legal action, and the press is camped outside our building demanding answers. He paused, letting the weight of those words sink in. Now, you seem like a decent person, a good employee, but this company has 15,000 people depending on it for their livelihoods. We cannot afford to have our CEO's judgment called into question because of a personal relationship with a subordinate. Do you understand what I'm saying? With respect, Mr. Vale, Patricia said, my client's personal life is not the company's business unless it involves actual misconduct. Has Mr. Cole violated any company policies? The fraternization policy clearly states that romantic relationships between employees must be disclosed to HR. Has Mr. Cole been in a romantic relationship with Charlotte Vale? Ethan found his voice. No, not before last night. Last night, Margaret pounced. So you admit there is now a relationship? I admit that Charlotte came to my house after leaving her wedding. We talked, that's all. And the photograph showing intimate physical contact? Shows 2 people hugging after an emotionally difficult conversation. Patricia's voice was crisp. Unless this company has a policy against compassion, I fail to see the violation. Robert Vale's eyes narrowed. Ms. Chen, I appreciate your client's need for defense, but let me be frank. The perception here is damaging regardless of the technical reality. We need to manage this situation, and the cleanest way to do that is to establish clear professional boundaries going forward. Meaning? Ethan asked, though he already knew. Meaning we're placing you on administrative leave while we conduct an investigation into potential ethics violations. You'll be paid during this period, but you're not to contact Charlotte or come to this office. When the investigation concludes, we'll determine next steps. That's unacceptable, Patricia said immediately. You're punishing my client for being photographed with Charlotte Vale. If she initiated contact with him, which she did, and if no company policy was violated, which it wasn't, then you have no grounds for disciplinary action. We have grounds to protect our company's interests. And I have grounds to file a lawsuit for wrongful termination, harassment, and defamation if you continue down this path. And Patricia stood, and Ethan followed her lead. My client has committed no violation. If you proceed with this investigation, we'll fight it. And given the media attention this situation is receiving, I guarantee a lawsuit will make your PR problems exponentially worse. The room went silent. Margaret and David exchanged glances. Robert Vale's expression didn't change, but something flickered in his eyes. Calculation, perhaps. Or respect. You're putting your career on the line for my daughter? He asked Ethan directly. Ethan met his gaze. I'm standing up for the truth. Charlotte made her own decision yesterday. I didn't manipulate her or coerce her or do anything inappropriate. She came to me because she needed a friend. That's all. A friend? Robert's tone was skeptical. The way you were holding her in that photograph looked like more than friendship. What it looked like and what it was are 2 different things. Ethan felt his own anger rising now, burning through the fear. I've worked at this company for 6 years. I've never had a single ethics complaint. My performance reviews are exemplary. The educational tablet line I developed has won awards and expanded our market share by 15%. But because one photograph shows me comforting my boss after she made a brave, difficult decision, you're ready to throw me away to protect your stock price. Ethan, Patricia murmured a warning, but he couldn't stop. You want to investigate me? Fine. Investigate. Check my emails, interview my coworkers, audit every decision I've ever made. You won't find anything inappropriate because nothing inappropriate happened. But if you suspend me, if you punish me for something I didn't do just because it's easier than defending the truth, then this company isn't what I thought it was. And neither is Charlotte. The last words came out harder than he intended. Robert Vale's eyebrows rose. You're questioning my daughter's character? I'm questioning whether she'll let you scapegoat an innocent employee to save face. Ethan's hands were shaking, but his voice stayed steady. Because the Charlotte Vale I know, the CEO who built this company on ethics and innovation and doing the right thing even when it's hard, she wouldn't stand for this. So either I'm wrong about her or you're wrong about how to handle this situation. The silence that followed was deafening. Margaret looked like she wanted to disappear into her chair. David was furiously taking notes. Robert Vale studied Ethan with an intensity that felt like being X-rayed. Finally, the older man spoke. You love her. It wasn't a question. Ethan could have denied it, could have deflected or stayed professional. Instead, he told the truth. Yes, and she loves you? You'd have to ask her. I have. She won't answer me. Robert's expression softened slightly, something almost like pain crossing his face. My daughter has spent her entire adult life building this company. She's sacrificed relationships, personal happiness, everything for Vale Innovations. And yesterday, she walked away from a merger that would have secured our position for the next decade. Because of you. Not because of me, Ethan corrected. Because she chose honesty over obligation. Because she refused to spend her life pretending to be happy in a marriage that would have destroyed her. I didn't make that choice for her. I didn't even ask her to make it. She made it herself. Robert stood, moving to the window that overlooked the city. When he spoke again, his voice was quieter. Charlotte's mother, my wife. She died when Charlotte was 16, cancer. And in those final weeks, she made me promise something. She made me promise that I wouldn't let our daughter lose herself in this company the way I had. That I would make sure Charlotte lived her life, not just managed it. He turned back to face Ethan. I failed. I let Charlotte become exactly what I'd been, so focused on success that everything else became secondary. And yesterday, when she called me from her car to tell me she'd left her wedding, the first thing I felt wasn't anger or disappointment. It was relief. Because for the first time in years, my daughter sounded like herself again. Margaret shifted uncomfortably. Mr. Vale, with respect, this situation requires honesty. Robert cut her off. Which is what Mr. Cole has been giving us and what we've been avoiding. He looked at David. End the investigation. There's nothing to investigate. But the board, David protested. I'll handle the board. Mr. Cole returns to work on Monday. No suspension, no black mark on his record, no investigation. We release a statement saying that after thorough review, we found no evidence of policy violations and consider the matter closed. The optics, Margaret tried. The optics will be what we make them. Robert's voice carried steel now. We're going to be honest. Charlotte Vale is a grown woman who made a personal decision about her private life. That decision has no bearing on her professional capabilities or Mr. Cole's employment. We support our CEO and our employees. End of statement. Patricia looked stunned. Ethan felt equally blindsided. He'd walked into this meeting expecting a fight, maybe even expecting to be fired. Instead, Robert Vale was defending him. Why? Ethan asked. Robert smiled slightly. Because my daughter is right about you, and because I'm tired of watching her sacrifice her happiness for a company that should be serving her, not the other way around. He extended his hand. Welcome to the family, Mr. Cole. Fair warning, it's going to get worse before it gets better, but we'll handle it together. Ethan shook his hand, still processing what had just happened. As he and Patricia left the conference room, his phone buzzed with a text from Charlotte. How did it go? Please tell me they didn't destroy you. He typed back. Your father just defended me to the board. I think I'm more scared now than before. Her response came immediately. He likes you, which means you're definitely in trouble now. Different kind of trouble, though. Despite everything, the reporters, the scandal, the chaos, Ethan smiled. Robert Vale's support didn't stop the hemorrhaging. By Monday morning, 3 more major investors had pulled out, citing concerns about leadership stability. The stock continued its free fall, down 31% from Friday's close. Financial analysts filled cable news segments with grim predictions about Vail Innovation's future, and the hashtag failed CEO trended on social media alongside increasingly vicious speculation about Charlotte's mental state. Ethan returned to work as promised, but the office felt like hostile territory. Conversation stopped when he walked past. Coworkers who'd been friendly for years suddenly found reasons to avoid the break room when he was there. His inbox overflowed with meeting requests from people who'd never needed his input before. All of them, he suspected, looking for gossip to spread. The only person who treated him normally was James, who appeared at Ethan's desk Monday morning with 2 coffees and a grim expression. "It's bad in here," James said without preamble. "Half the office thinks you're a homewrecker. The other half thinks Charlotte had a mental breakdown. Nobody knows what to believe." "What do you think?" Ethan asked, accepting the coffee. James sat on the edge of the desk. "I think you're the most boring ethical person I know, which means if you're involved with Charlotte, it's because something real happened. But Ethan, people are scared. The stock's tanking, there's talk of layoffs, and everyone's looking for someone to blame. And I'm convenient." "You're visible." James lowered his voice. "Look, there's a board meeting this afternoon. Emergency session. Word is the Ashford family's lawyers have found some kind of evidence they're planning to use to force Charlotte out." Ethan's stomach dropped. "What kind of evidence?" "Nobody knows. But it's bad enough that even your new biggest fan, Robert Vail, called an emergency session to discuss it." After James left, Ethan tried to focus on work, but his mind kept circling back to Charlotte. They hadn't spoken since Friday, except for brief texts. She was drowning in crisis management meetings, and he was trying to keep his head down. But the thought of her facing the board alone, facing whatever weapon the Ashfords had found, made his chest tight with worry. His phone buzzed. Charlotte's name appeared on the screen, but instead of a text, it was a calendar invitation. Board meeting, 2 p.m., executive conference room. And in the notes section, just 2 words. "Be there." Ethan stared at the invitation. She wanted him at the board meeting, where the Ashfords' evidence would be presented, where her leadership would be challenged, where his presence would only make everything worse. He should decline, should stay far away from that room and let Charlotte handle her own company's politics. But even as he thought it, Ethan knew he wouldn't, because Charlotte had asked, and because whatever was coming, she shouldn't have to face it alone. At 1:55 p.m., Ethan stood outside the executive conference room, his heart hammering. Through the glass walls, he could see board members filing in, 12 of them, representing the company's major shareholders and stakeholders. Robert Vail sat at the head of the table, his expression carved from granite. Charlotte sat to his right, perfectly composed in a navy suit, her hair pulled back in the severe style she wore for battle. The door opened. Charlotte's assistant, Michelle, gave him a tight smile. "She's expecting you. Go ahead." The conversation stopped when Ethan entered. 12 pairs of eyes swiveled toward him, expressions ranging from curiosity to open hostility. He recognized some of them. David Morrison, the venture capitalist who'd backed Vail Innovations in its early days. Patricia Langley, former tech CEO and Charlotte's mentor. Others he knew only from quarterly reports and shareholder meetings. And at the far end of the table, looking like he owned the place, sat Marcus Ashford III. He looked exactly like his photographs. Tall, classically handsome in that old money way, wearing a suit that probably cost more than Ethan's car. But there was something cold in his eyes as they locked onto Ethan, something calculating and cruel. "Ah, the famous Mr. Cole." Marcus's voice dripped with false civility. "How generous of you to join us." Charlotte stood. "Ethan is here at my request. As senior product manager, he has valuable insight into company operations." "How convenient," Patricia Langley said dryly, "that your product manager also happens to be the man you were photographed with hours after abandoning your wedding." "Ms. Langley, if you have concerns about my personal life, we can address them separately. But this meeting is about Vail Innovation's future, and Ethan's presence is relevant to that discussion." Robert Vail cleared his throat. "Charlotte, perhaps we should start with why we're all here. Marcus, you requested this meeting. You said you had information the board needed to hear." Marcus stood, pulling a folder from his briefcase with theatrical precision. "Thank you, Robert. I'll be direct. Over the past 6 months, as part of our merger due diligence, my family's legal team conducted extensive research into Vail Innovation's business practices. What we found was concerning. He slid copies of documents across the table. Charlotte's face remained neutral, but Ethan saw her hands tighten on the armrests of her chair. These documents show a pattern of financial irregularities dating back 18 months, payments to shell companies, creative accounting to inflate quarterly results, and most damning, evidence that Charlotte knew about and approved these practices. The room erupted. Board members leaned forward, grabbing the documents, voices rising in shock and accusation. Ethan looked at Charlotte, but she was staring at Marcus with an expression he'd never seen before. Pure, cold fury. "That's a lie," she said quietly, but the steel in her voice cut through the chaos. "Is it?" Marcus's smile was sharp. "Because these documents bear your signature, Charlotte. Your authorization, your approval of payments to companies that, upon investigation, don't actually exist." David Morrison held up one of the pages. "Charlotte, this shows a payment of $2.3 million to a company called Horizon Solutions. I don't recognize that vendor." "Because it doesn't exist," Marcus supplied helpfully. "None of these companies exist. The payments went to offshore accounts controlled by, well, that's where it gets interesting." He pulled out another document, and Ethan's blood ran cold. It was a bank statement showing an account in the Cayman Islands, and the account holder's name was Ethan Cole. "No," Ethan breathed. "That's not... I didn't... Didn't you?" Marcus turned to him with mock sympathy. "Mr. Cole, these records show that over the past 18 months, approximately $4.7 million has been funneled through various shell companies into this offshore account. An account bearing your name and social security number opened 3 weeks after your promotion to senior product manager." The room exploded again. Patricia Langley stood, her voice cutting through the noise. "Charlotte, please tell me this isn't true. Please tell me you haven't been embezzling company funds." "I haven't." Charlotte's voice was steady, but Ethan could see the tension in her shoulders. "Those documents are forgeries. That bank account is fabricated. This is a setup." "A setup?" Marcus laughed. "Charlotte, I understand you're upset about the wedding situation, but accusing me of fraud is not fraud. Strategic manipulation." Charlotte stood facing the board. "Marcus, when exactly did your team discover these irregularities?" "During routine due diligence, as I said. Be specific. What date?" Marcus hesitated just for a second. "I'd have to check the exact... 3 weeks ago," Charlotte cut in. "Your team presented these findings to you exactly 3 weeks ago. The same week I told you I was having doubts about the merger. The same week I asked to postpone the wedding to reconsider our arrangement." The room went quiet. Marcus's expression hardened. "Are you suggesting I fabricated evidence because you got cold feet?" "I'm suggesting you fabricated evidence because I was about to discover something much worse." Charlotte pulled out her own folder, and Ethan saw Marcus's confidence flicker. "While your team was busy creating fake financial records to frame me and Ethan, my team was doing actual due diligence on Ashford Industries. Would you like to tell the board what we found, or should I?" Marcus's jaw tightened. "I have no idea what you're talking about." "No?" Charlotte opened her folder, spreading documents across the table. "Then let me enlighten everyone. For the past 2 years, Ashford Industries has been systematically looting its own pension fund. Approximately $47 million has been transferred out of employee retirement accounts and into personal holdings controlled by the Ashford Family Trust." The board members leaned forward, examining the new documents. David Morrison's face went white. "Charlotte, these show wire transfers from Ashford's pension fund to accounts in Luxembourg, the Bahamas, and the Cayman Islands," Charlotte finished. "The same jurisdiction where the fake account in Ethan's name supposedly exists. Interesting coincidence, don't you think?" Marcus's polished composure was cracking. Those transfers were legitimate business expenses. "Business expenses paid from a pension fund? That's illegal, Marcus. It's also theft from your own employees." Charlotte's voice was cold and precise. "The merger wasn't about combining our company's strengths. It was about giving you access to Vail Innovation's capital to cover the hole you'd created in your own company's finances. You needed our cash flow to hide your fraud before your employees realized their retirement savings were gone. Patricia Langley was reading through Charlotte's documents, her expression growing darker. Marcus, is this true? Have you been stealing from your employees' pensions? Those are confidential financial records. How did you even get a whistleblower? Charlotte's voice softened slightly. Someone in your finance department who realized what was happening and couldn't stay silent. Someone with a conscience, unlike you. The room erupted in accusations and denials. Board members fired questions at Marcus, who'd gone from confident to cornered in a matter of minutes. Robert Vale sat back in his chair, watching the chaos with an unreadable expression. Ethan felt like he was watching a chess master execute a strategy planned months in advance. Charlotte hadn't just defended herself. She'd turned the tables completely, exposing Marcus's fraud while dismantling his attempt to frame her. Even if what you're saying is true, Marcus said, desperation creeping into his voice, it doesn't change the fact that there are financial irregularities at Vale Innovations. Documents with your signature. Forgeries, Charlotte repeated, and I can prove it. Every document I sign gets a digital timestamp and encryption verification. Our IT department can trace the exact moment each legitimate signature was created. These documents you're presenting, they'll fail that verification because they were created recently, not 18 months ago. She looked at Robert. I recommend we have our forensic accounting team examine both sets of documents, Marcus's accusations against Vale and my evidence of Ashford's pension fraud. Let an independent audit determine which claims are legitimate. Agreed, Robert said immediately. Marcus, you're welcome to stay for the audit, or you can leave. But either way, this meeting is over. Marcus grabbed his briefcase, his polished facade completely shattered. You're making a mistake. The Ashford family has powerful connections, powerful lawyers. And I have the truth, Charlotte said simply. Which tends to win in the long run. You can show yourself out. As Marcus stalked toward the door, he passed close enough to Ethan to hiss, She's going to destroy you too, eventually. The moment you're not useful anymore. Then he was gone, and the conference room filled with the stunned silence of people realizing they'd just witnessed something historic. Patricia Langley spoke first. Charlotte, I owe you an apology. When you called off that wedding, I thought you were making an emotional, impulsive decision. I didn't realize you were avoiding a catastrophe. I didn't know the full extent of it at the time, Charlotte admitted. I just knew something felt wrong. The merger numbers were too good. Marcus's eagerness was too intense. When I asked questions, I got deflection instead of answers. So I hired a private forensic team to dig deeper. When? David Morrison asked. 3 months ago, right after Marcus proposed. Charlotte's smile was grim. Call it pre-wedding due diligence. The team found the pension irregularities 2 weeks before the wedding. I confronted Marcus privately, gave him a chance to explain. He denied everything, told me I was paranoid, suggested I was too stressed to think clearly. That's when I knew I couldn't marry him. Robert was watching his daughter with something that might have been pride. Why didn't you tell me? Tell the board? Because I needed absolute proof. Marcus is right about one thing. His family has powerful connections. If I'd made accusations without ironclad evidence, they would have buried me in lawsuits and destroyed my credibility. I needed documentation that would stand up in court, testimony from witnesses willing to go on record, a case that couldn't be dismissed as jealousy or cold feet. So you waited until the wedding, Patricia said slowly, knowing that calling it off would create exactly this kind of crisis. I had to choose. Charlotte's voice was quiet but firm. Marry a man I didn't love to preserve a merger I knew was fraudulent, or walk away and face the consequences. The first option was easier. The second was right. The board members exchanged glances. Ethan could see the calculation happening. Charlotte had just saved the company from a disastrous merger and exposed major fraud at a partner company. But she'd also tanked their stock price and created a PR nightmare by calling off her wedding in spectacular fashion. The question now, David Morrison said carefully, is what we do next. Our stock is down 31%. We've lost major investors. The press is having a field day with your personal life, Charlotte. Even if you saved us from Marcus's fraud, the damage to our reputation is severe. I know. Charlotte looked around the table, which is why I'm prepared to offer my resignation as CEO, effective immediately. The room went silent. Ethan felt like he'd been punched in the chest. "No," he said before he could stop himself. "You can't." Charlotte held up a hand, silencing him. "The company needs stability. It needs leadership that doesn't come with scandal attached. My presence is a liability right now, and I won't let my personal decisions destroy what we've built." "Charlotte, that's not necessary," Robert started, but she cut him off. "It is necessary, and it's the right thing to do." She pulled out a prepared resignation letter, sliding it across the table to her father. "I've thought about this carefully. I'm resigning as CEO, but I'll remain on the board and maintain my shareholding position. We'll appoint an interim CEO while we conduct a proper search for my replacement, someone without baggage, someone who can restore investor confidence." Patricia Langley was shaking her head. "Charlotte, you're one of the best CEOs in the industry. You just saved this company from disaster. Walking away now sends the wrong message." "Staying sends a worse one," Charlotte countered. "It says we're prioritizing personal loyalty over company health. I won't do that." The debate raged for another 20 minutes, board members arguing both sides while Charlotte sat calm and resolute. Ethan watched her, seeing the toll this was taking even though she hid it well. She was sacrificing herself, her position, her company, everything she'd built, because she believed it was right. Finally, Robert Vale stood. "I think we need to vote on this. All in favor of accepting Charlotte's resignation as CEO." Hands rose around the table. 6 votes in favor. Ethan felt sick. "All opposed?" 5 hands, including Robert's. The abstention from one board member who looked torn. "The motion carries," Robert said quietly. "Charlotte, your resignation is accepted. We'll announce it tomorrow morning along with the news about the Ashford fraud investigation. Try to turn this narrative from scandal to triumph. CEO uncovers major fraud, steps down to focus on ensuring proper investigation." Charlotte nodded, her face carefully neutral. "Thank you all for your service to this company. I'm confident Vale Innovations will continue to thrive." As the board members filed out, murmuring amongst themselves, Ethan remained seated. Charlotte sat perfectly still at the conference table, staring at nothing, and he could see the cracks forming in her composure. When the last board member left, when it was just the two of them in the too large room, Charlotte's shoulders finally sagged. "You shouldn't have resigned," Ethan said. "I didn't have a choice." "You always have a choice. You taught me that." He moved to sit beside her. "Charlotte, you just exposed massive fraud. You saved the company from a catastrophic merger. You should be celebrated, not forced out." "The stock price says otherwise." Her voice was hollow. 31%, Ethan. Billions in shareholder value, gone. People have lost their retirement savings because our stock tanked. Employees are worried about layoffs. That's on me. That's on Marcus Ashford and his family's fraud being exposed. The stock will recover once the truth comes out. Maybe. Charlotte finally looked at him, and he saw the exhaustion in her eyes. "But even if it does, I made the right call. The company needs a clean slate, not a CEO who's tabloid fodder. This way, we can move forward." "And what about you? What do you do now?" Charlotte laughed, but it sounded broken. "I have no idea. For the first time in my adult life, I don't have a company to run, a merger to manage, a crisis to solve. I'm just Charlotte. No role, no title, no purpose." "That's not true." Ethan took her hand, feeling how cold her fingers were. "You're still a board member. You still own a significant stake in Vale. And more importantly, you're finally free to figure out who Charlotte is when she's not drowning in CEO responsibilities." "What if I don't like who that person is?" "Then we'll figure it out together." The words were out before Ethan could second-guess them. "Charlotte, I meant what I said to your father. I'm in this with you, not because of your title or your company or your money, because of you." She turned to face him fully, searching his eyes. "You realize your life would be so much simpler if you just closed the door Friday night?" "Simpler isn't always better." "Ethan, I just resigned as CEO of a billion-dollar company. My reputation is in tatters. The press is calling me unstable. Marcus's family will probably sue me for defamation. I'm a disaster." "You're brave," Ethan corrected. You walked away from a fraudulent merger even though it meant professional suicide. You chose truth over convenience. That's not disaster. That's integrity. Charlotte closed her eyes, and when she opened them again, they were wet. I'm terrified. I've been Charlotte Vale, CEO, for so long that I don't know how to be anything else. What if I'm nothing without the company? You're not nothing. Ethan squeezed her hand. You're brilliant and ethical and brave enough to blow up your own life rather than live a lie. That's who you are, with or without a CEO title. A knock on the glass wall interrupted them. Robert Vale stood in the doorway, his expression softer than Ethan had yet seen it. Charlotte, can I have a moment? Ethan started to stand, but Robert waved him back down. Stay. You're part of this now, whether you plan to be or not. He sat across from them, looking older than he had an hour ago. That was the hardest vote I've ever cast, accepting your resignation. You voted against it, Charlotte pointed out, because I'm your father, and I couldn't bear to be the one to end your tenure. But Charlotte, they were right. The company needs stability right now, and your presence, however unfair it is, creates instability. I know. Charlotte's voice was steady again, the tears controlled. That's why I offered to step down. Robert studied her for a long moment. Your mother would be proud of you, not because you resigned, but because you chose honesty over image. She always said that real leadership meant making hard choices that served others, even at personal cost. I remember. Charlotte's voice softened. She said you'd lost sight of that, in the years before she got sick, that you'd become so focused on building the company that you'd forgotten why you started it. She was right, and I made her a promise before she died, that I wouldn't let you make the same mistake. Robert smiled sadly. Looks like you figured it out yourself. You just had to lose everything first to remember what actually matters. He stood, placing a hand on Charlotte's shoulder. Take some time. Rest. Figure out who you want to be now that you're not defined by Vale Innovations. And when you're ready, we'll talk about what comes next. After he left, Charlotte and Ethan sat in silence for a long moment. Through the conference room windows, they could see Vale Innovations employees moving through the halls, unaware that their CEO had just resigned, unaware that the company they thought they knew was about to transform completely. I should tell my team, Charlotte said finally, before the announcement tomorrow. They deserve to hear it from me. Want company? She looked at him, and for the first time since the board meeting, she smiled, small and genuine. Always. They walked through the executive floor together, Charlotte stopping at offices and conference rooms to deliver the news personally. Ethan watched her handle each conversation with grace and honesty, never making excuses or seeking sympathy, just explaining her decision and reassuring people that the company would be fine. Some people cried. Some looked relieved. Some seemed confused about what this meant for their own futures. But all of them, Ethan noticed, treated Charlotte with respect, even the ones who'd been gossiping about her just days ago. Because whatever scandal surrounded her personal life, her professional reputation remained intact. She'd built Vale Innovations on ethics and innovation, and she was leaving it the same way, with integrity. By the time they finished, it was past 7 p.m. The offices were mostly empty, just a few dedicated employees working late. Charlotte stood at her office window looking out at the city lights, and Ethan could see the exhaustion finally catching up with her. Come on, he said gently. Let's get you home. Home, Charlotte laughed softly. I have a penthouse I barely live in filled with furniture a decorator chose because I was too busy for personal preferences. That's not really home. Then where do you want to go? She turned to look at him, and in her eyes he saw vulnerability and hope mixed together. Honestly, I want to go to your place. I want to sit in your kitchen and eat pizza with you and Lily and just be normal for a few hours. Is that crazy? Probably, Ethan admitted. But let's do it anyway. They picked up Lily from Rachel's house, Charlotte changing out of her business suit in Rachel's bathroom and emerging in jeans and a borrowed sweater that made her look younger and more relaxed than Ethan had ever seen her. Lily squealed with delight when she saw Charlotte, launching into an enthusiastic recap of her day at kindergarten. Back at Ethan's apartment, the reporters had finally dispersed, probably chasing new scandals now that the story had gone quiet for a few days. They made pizza together, Lily directing Charlotte on proper cheese distribution, while Ethan handled the sauce. It felt surreal. Charlotte Vale, former CEO of a billion-dollar company, laughing in his kitchen while his 5-year-old daughter explained why purple was objectively the best color. But it also felt right in a way that scared Ethan with its intensity. This could be his life, this easy domesticity, this simple joy, if he was brave enough to reach for it. After dinner, while Lily colored at the table, Charlotte helped Ethan with the dishes. The silence between them was comfortable, natural.
Thank you, she said quietly, handing him a plate to dry. For what? For not running. For being here even when it would be easier to distance yourself. For treating me like Charlotte instead of failed CEO Charlotte Vale. She paused. For making me remember what normal feels like. Ethan set down the plate he was drying. Charlotte, I need to ask you something, and I need you to be honest. She tensed slightly. Okay. Do you regret it? Calling off the wedding? Coming here? Everything that's happened since? Charlotte considered the question seriously, not rushing to reassure him. Finally, she shook her head. No. I regret the pain it caused, the employees worried about their jobs, the investors who lost money, the chaos and scandal. But the decision itself? No. For the first time in years, I feel like myself. Scared and uncertain, yes, but authentic. That's worth more than any CEO title.
Even though you lost your company? I didn't lose it. I'm still on the board, still a major shareholder. I just lost the right to call myself CEO. She smiled slightly. Turns out, I was more than that title all along. I just forgot. Lily appeared beside them, tugging on Charlotte's hand. Will you help me color? Daddy's not very good at staying in the lines. I would love to help you color. Charlotte let Lily pull her back to the table, and Ethan watched them work together. Charlotte's executive precision applied to a kindergartner's coloring book with complete seriousness. This was what he wanted, Ethan realized. Not the scandal or the complications or the media attention, but this. The quiet evening, the domestic simplicity, the feeling of family that had been missing since Sarah died. Charlotte fit into this space like she'd always belonged here, and Lily had already adopted her with the easy acceptance of children who recognize kindness. But wanting it didn't make it simple. Charlotte might have resigned as CEO, but she was still a public figure, still tabloid fodder, still the woman who'd left Marcus Ashford at the altar. Dating her openly would mean accepting a life in the spotlight, subjecting Lily to scrutiny and gossip, risking everything stable and safe Ethan had built. His phone buzzed with a news alert. Vale Innovations CEO, Charlotte. Vale to resign amid scandal. Full story tomorrow. Someone had leaked the resignation early. By morning, the story would be everywhere, and the scrutiny would intensify. Charlotte would be painted as either a victim or a villain, depending on the outlet, and Ethan, by association, would be dragged through it all. He looked at Charlotte, focused on helping Lily add purple accents to a drawing of a house. He looked at his daughter, happier than she'd been in months, chattering away about her imaginary purple goldfish kingdom. He looked at his quiet apartment, soon to be invaded again by reporters and photographers and public judgment, and he made his choice. Charlotte? He waited until she looked up. Tomorrow, when the resignation announcement hits, when the press comes looking for comments and the speculation starts again, we handle it together. No hiding, no pretending, we tell the truth. Her eyes widened. Ethan, are you sure? Because once we go public, there's no taking it back. The scrutiny will be intense. I'm sure. And he was. Terrified, but sure. We do this honestly, or we don't do it at all. Charlotte stood, crossing to where he leaned against the counter. She took his hands in hers, her eyes searching his face. You're absolutely certain? Because I meant what I said. Lily comes first. If this puts her at risk, the only thing that puts her at risk is me being too scared to choose happiness. I've spent 3 years playing it safe, and all it's done is teach her that love ends and you can't trust good things to last. Maybe it's time I taught her something different. That sometimes the bravest thing you can do is fight for what you want. Even when it's hard? Especially when it's hard. Charlotte leaned up and kissed him, soft and brief but full of promise. When she pulled back, Ethan saw hope blazing in her eyes. Then let's be brave together, she said. Lily looked up from her coloring, oblivious to the moment's significance. Are you staying for bedtime stories? Daddy does the voices really funny. Charlotte laughed,
the sound light and genuine. I would love to stay for stories.
And as Ethan watched Charlotte settle onto the couch with his daughter, reading a picture book about dragons with ridiculous voice acting that made Lily giggle, he felt something click into place. This was right. Complicated and scary, and probably going to get much harder before it got easier, but fundamentally, absolutely right. Tomorrow, they would face the world together. Tonight, they were just Charlotte and Ethan and Lily, building something new from the ashes of everything they'd lost. Sometimes the bravest decision wasn't about climbing higher. It was about choosing who stood beside you when the mountain crumbled. The announcement came at 8 a.m. sharp, time to hit before the market opened. Vail Innovations' official statement was carefully crafted. Charlotte Vail stepping down as CEO to focus on the ongoing investigation into Ashford Industries' alleged pension fraud, maintaining her board position and shareholding while the company appointed interim leadership. Professional, measured, designed to minimize damage. The media ignored the careful language and went straight for blood. By 9 a.m., Ethan's phone was exploding again. News vans reappeared on his street like vultures returning to a carcass. His inbox filled with interview requests, most of them thinly veiled attempts to get him to trash Charlotte or confirm the affair allegations. Rachel called 6 times before he finally answered. "You need to see this," she said without preamble. Ethan pulled up the news on his laptop while Rachel stayed on the line. The headlines were worse than he'd imagined. Disgraced CEO steps down after wedding scandal. Charlotte Vail resigns amid questions about mental stability and inappropriate workplace relationship. From runaway bride to ousted executive, the fall of Charlotte Vail. But it was the opinion pieces that really twisted the knife. Think pieces about how Charlotte represented everything wrong with female leadership. Too emotional, unable to separate personal feelings from professional judgment, a cautionary tale about women who couldn't handle the pressure of the C-suite. "This is character assassination," Ethan said, his hands tightening on the phone. "It gets worse," Rachel said quietly. "Check the Valley Business Journal." He found the article, and his stomach dropped. The piece included interviews with anonymous Vail Innovations employees, all of them painting a picture of Charlotte as an unstable, demanding boss who'd been having a secret affair with Ethan for months. One person claimed they'd seen them having intimate dinners together. Another said Charlotte had promoted Ethan specifically because of their relationship. All lies. All completely unprovable lies that would stick in people's minds regardless of the truth. "Ethan, this is going to get uglier," Rachel said. "You need to think about Lily, about what happens when she goes to school and the other kids have heard their parents talking. When she gets old enough to Google your name and finds all this." "I know." Ethan ran a hand through his hair, exhaustion already settling into his bones even though the day had barely started. "But, Rachel, what's the alternative? Hide. Pretend Charlotte doesn't exist? Teach Lily that the right response to lies is to run away?" "I'm saying protect her. You're her father. That comes first." "I am protecting her." Even as he said it, Ethan wondered if it was true. "I'm showing her that you stand up for people you care about, that you don't abandon someone when things get hard." Rachel was quiet for a long moment. "You really love her. Charlotte, I mean." "Yeah, I really do." "Then I hope she's worth it. Because Ethan, you're betting everything, your career, your reputation, Lily's stability, on a woman you've known in any real capacity for less than a week." After Rachel hung up, Ethan sat in the quiet of his apartment, her words echoing. She was right. A week ago, Charlotte had been his boss, respected, admired from a distance, but essentially a stranger to his personal life. Now she was the center of a media firestorm that threatened to consume everything he'd built. But when he closed his eyes, he didn't see the CEO in the news articles or the runaway bride in the photographs. He saw Charlotte sitting on his couch last night, reading to Lily with complete attention. Saw her washing dishes beside him like it was the most natural thing in the world. Saw the vulnerability in her eyes when she'd admitted she was terrified of being nobody without her title. His phone rang. "Charlotte." "Have you seen the news?" she asked, her voice tight. "Yeah." "Ethan, I'm so sorry. The Valley Business Journal piece, those employee quotes, I know who gave them. Marcus has people inside Vail, loyalists who think I betrayed the company by exposing the fraud. They're feeding the media anything that makes me look unstable." "Can you fight it? Sue for defamation?" I could. My lawyers say we have a case. But Ethan, that means more publicity, more scrutiny, more time in the spotlight. It means dragging this out for months, maybe years. She paused. It means dragging you and Lily through it too. Ethan heard what she wasn't saying. She was giving him an out, a chance to step back, to let her fight this battle alone, to protect himself and his daughter from the fallout. What time is the press conference? He asked instead. Noon at Vale headquarters. I'm announcing my resignation officially and answering questions about the Ashford investigation. Her voice softened. You don't have to be there, Ethan. In fact, it's probably better if you're not. Your presence will just fuel more speculation. I'll be there. Ethan, we said we'd do this together. Honestly. That means I stand beside you when you face the press, not hiding at home while you take all the heat. He stood, moving to his window to check on the reporters outside. Besides, they're already camped on my street. Might as well give them something real to report on instead of letting them make things up. You're sure? The hope in her voice made his chest ache. I'm terrified, but I'm sure. Charlotte's laugh was shaky but genuine. Okay, together then. Meet me in the lobby at 11:30. And Ethan, thank you for not running. After the call ended, Ethan made arrangements for Lily. Rachel agreed to pick her up from school and keep her for the afternoon, shielding her from whatever media circus the press conference might create. Then he called Patricia Chen, his lawyer, and asked her to be on standby in case things went sideways. You're really doing this? Patricia asked. Going public with Charlotte? We're not hiding anymore. Good. Hiding makes you look guilty. But Ethan, be prepared. The questions are going to be brutal. They're going to ask about your relationship timeline, your promotion, whether you encouraged Charlotte to leave Marcus. You need to have clear, honest answers ready. They spent an hour rehearsing responses, Patricia drilling him on every possible hostile question. By the time Ethan headed to Vale headquarters, he felt marginally more prepared, though his hands were still shaking when he gripped the steering wheel. The lobby of Vale Innovations was packed with reporters when Ethan arrived at 11:30. Cameras, microphones, journalists jostling for position. The moment he walked through the doors, conversation stopped. Cameras swiveled toward him. He felt stripped bare under their collective gaze, every insecurity and fear exposed. Charlotte emerged from the elevator, flanked by her father and a PR representative. She dressed carefully for this. A simple navy dress, minimal jewelry, her hair pulled back. Professional but not cold, approachable but not casual. She looked every inch the competent executive she'd always been, and Ethan felt a surge of pride watching her navigate the crowd with quiet confidence. Their eyes met across the lobby. Charlotte's step faltered for just a second, surprise flickering across her face. She hadn't actually believed he'd come. Ethan crossed to her, aware of every camera tracking his movement, every reporter noting the interaction. When he reached her side, he didn't take her hand or touch her. That felt too performative, too much like playing to the cameras. Instead, he simply stood beside her, close enough that the message was clear. You came, Charlotte said quietly. I said I would. Robert Vale studied Ethan with an unreadable expression, then nodded slightly. The PR representative looked like she wanted to object to Ethan's presence, but didn't dare with Robert watching. We're ready when you are, Ms. Vale, the PR rep said, gesturing toward the prepared podium. Charlotte took a deep breath, squaring her shoulders. Then she walked to the podium, Ethan following half a step behind. The press conference room was standing room only, cameras positioned at every angle. Ethan recognized journalists from major business publications, tech blogs, even tabloid outlets looking for scandal over substance. Charlotte adjusted the microphone, and the room fell silent. Thank you all for coming. I'll make a brief statement, then take questions. Her voice was steady, controlled. Effective today, I'm resigning as CEO of Vale Innovations, a position I've held for 8 years. This decision comes after careful consideration of what's best for the company and its 15,000 employees worldwide. She paused, letting that sink in. Over the past week, there's been intense speculation about my personal life, my professional judgment, and the events surrounding my canceled wedding to Marcus Ashford III. I want to address those issues clearly and honestly. Ethan watched the reporters lean forward, hungry for details. The merger between Vale Innovations and Ashford Industries was predicated on due diligence that revealed certain financial practices at Ashford Industries that gave me serious concern. When I raised these concerns privately, I was told I was being overly cautious. When I continued to investigate, I uncovered evidence of what appears to be systematic misappropriation of employee pension funds. Murmurs rippled through the crowd. This was new information. The official statement had been vague about the nature of the Ashford investigation. I could not, in good conscience, proceed with a merger, knowing that our partner company was potentially defrauding its own employees. I also could not, in good conscience, marry someone who was aware of these practices and chose to hide them rather than address them. So I made the difficult decision to call off the wedding. A reporter shouted a question, but Charlotte raised her hand. I'll take questions in a moment. But first, I want to address the speculation about my relationship with Ethan Cole, who some of you have photographed and written about extensively this past week. Ethan felt every camera in the room swing toward him, his pulse hammered in his ears. Ethan is a senior product manager at Vale Innovations. He's been with the company for 6 years and has an exemplary record. He leads the educational technology division that has won multiple industry awards and expanded our market share significantly. His promotion last year was based entirely on merit and was recommended by 3 separate department heads before I approved it. She looked directly at the cameras now, her voice hardening. There was no inappropriate relationship between us while he worked under my supervision. None. No secret meetings, no workplace romance, no ethical violations of any kind. The insinuations to the contrary are false, and I will not let a good man's reputation be destroyed by speculation and rumor. Then what is your relationship now? A reporter called out. Charlotte glanced at Ethan, a silent question in her eyes. He nodded slightly, giving permission for whatever she needed to say. Now Ethan is someone I care about deeply, someone who showed me kindness when I was at my lowest, someone who helped me remember that there's more to life than quarterly earnings and market share. Her voice softened. He's a single father raising a wonderful daughter. He's principled and honest and everything I forgot to value while I was busy building an empire. And yes, I have feelings for him, feelings that developed over time, but that I never acted on until after I'd left my wedding. The room erupted. Questions flew from every direction, reporters shouting over each other. When did the relationship start? Did he influence your decision to leave Marcus? What about the photo of you two the night of the wedding? Are you admitting to an affair? Charlotte held up both hands, waiting for quiet. When the noise finally died down, she spoke clearly and firmly. I am not admitting to an affair because there was no affair. I left my wedding because I discovered fraud and because I couldn't marry someone I didn't love. Later that evening, I went to Ethan's home seeking a friend's support. That's all. The photo you've all published shows exactly what it was. 2 people who care about each other, offering comfort after a difficult day. But you're in a relationship now, a reporter pressed. We're figuring out what we are, Charlotte said honestly. Neither of us planned this. Neither of us wanted the scrutiny or the scandal. But we're both committed to being honest about our feelings, rather than hiding or lying to make things more convenient. Ms. Vale, some people are saying this proves you're too emotionally unstable to lead a major company, that you let personal feelings override professional judgment. How do you respond? Ethan saw Charlotte's jaw tighten, but her voice remained calm. I respond by pointing to 8 years of leadership that grew this company from a startup to a multi-billion-dollar enterprise. 8 years of ethical decision-making, innovation, and putting employees and customers first. If choosing not to marry someone I don't love and exposing fraud makes me emotionally unstable, then I'm proud to be unstable. What about you, Mr. Cole? A reporter turned to Ethan. Did you pursue your boss romantically? Did you see an opportunity when her engagement seemed troubled? Ethan stepped closer to the microphone, his heart pounding. Public speaking had never been his strength, and doing it in front of hostile journalists while defending his integrity was nightmare fuel. But Charlotte was looking at him with trust and hope, and he couldn't let her stand alone. I never pursued Charlotte romantically, he said, keeping his voice steady. She was my boss. I respected her professionally and admired her leadership, but I maintained appropriate boundaries because that's what you do. I didn't see an opportunity when she called off her wedding. I saw someone I cared about going through something incredibly difficult, and I offered support the same way any decent person would. But you have feelings for her now? Yes. No point in lying. I have feelings for her. Feelings I didn't ask for and didn't act on while it would have been inappropriate. But now that Charlotte is no longer my direct supervisor, now that she's made her own choices about her personal life, yes, I care about her, and I'm not going to apologize for that or hide it to make other people more comfortable. What about your daughter? Another reporter asked. How does she feel about this relationship? Ethan's voice went cold. My daughter is 5 years old and off limits to this conversation. I'm happy to discuss my professional relationship with Charlotte, but my child's personal life is not up for public discussion. But surely you must be concerned about the impact this scandal. My daughter is off limits, Ethan repeated, harder this time. Next question. Charlotte touched his arm lightly, a gesture of support and gratitude. The cameras caught it, of course. By tonight, that moment would be analyzed and dissected across every media platform. But Ethan didn't care. Let them analyze. Let them speculate. The truth was simple. They cared about each other, and they weren't going to hide it. The questions continued for another 20 minutes, most of them variations on the same themes: timeline of the relationship, impact on the company, Charlotte's fitness to lead, Ethan's motivations. Charlotte answered each one with patience and clarity, never getting defensive, never losing her composure. When a particularly aggressive reporter suggested she'd used Ethan as an excuse to escape her engagement, Charlotte's response was swift and cutting. I don't need an excuse to end a relationship that wasn't right for me. I don't need a man to validate my decisions or give me permission to choose my own happiness. I left Marcus because he was hiding fraud and because I didn't love him. Everything else, including my feelings for Ethan, is separate from that fundamental truth. But finally, Robert Vale stepped forward. That's all the time we have. Thank you for coming. As they left the podium, reporters continued shouting questions. Ethan followed Charlotte through a side exit, his head spinning from the intensity of the past hour. They ended up in a small conference room on the executive floor, just the two of them and Robert. Well, Robert said dryly, that was bracing. Charlotte sank into a chair, suddenly looking exhausted. How bad was it? Honest, which is what we needed. Robert studied his daughter with concern. But Charlotte, you know this isn't over. The press will keep digging, Marcus's family will keep spreading rumors, and the court of public opinion is brutal. I know. Charlotte rubbed her temples. But at least now the truth is out there. People can believe it or not. That's their choice. But we did what we said we'd do. We were honest. Robert turned to Ethan. You did well up there. Better than I expected, frankly. Standing beside her, defending your boundaries about your daughter. That showed character. With respect, Mr. Vale, I wasn't performing for the cameras. I was telling the truth. I know, that's why it worked. Robert moved toward the door. I'll leave you two alone. Charlotte, take some time. Rest. Let the dust settle before you make any decisions about what comes next. After he left, Ethan sat beside Charlotte, both of them processing what had just happened. Through the window, they could see reporters still lingering in the parking lot, waiting for additional statements or candid photos. That was terrifying, Charlotte said quietly. You were amazing. I felt like I was being torn apart. Every question designed to make me defend my choices, justify my feelings, prove I'm not some unstable woman who can't separate personal and professional. She looked at him. And you, standing up there defending me even though it means your life is about to get exponentially more complicated. Why? Because it was the right thing to do. Ethan took her hand. And because I meant what I said. I care about you. Not Charlotte Vale, CEO. Not the billionaire entrepreneur. Just Charlotte, the woman who showed up at my door in a wedding dress, scared and vulnerable and brave enough to choose truth over comfort. Charlotte's eyes filled with tears. I keep waiting for you to realize this isn't worth it, that I'm not worth the chaos I've brought into your life. Then you'll be waiting forever. Ethan squeezed her hand. Charlotte, I spent 3 years after Sarah died just going through the motions. Work, parenting, sleep, repeat. I was alive, but not really living. And then you knocked on my door and reminded me that life is supposed to be about more than just getting through the day safely. It's supposed to be about connection and honesty and being brave enough to reach for what you want, even when it's scary. What do you want? Charlotte asked, her voice barely a whisper. You. This. A chance to see if what we have can survive outside that first night. He paused. But Charlotte, we have to be smart about this. For Lily's sake. No more press conferences or public declarations. We figure this out privately, carefully, and only go public with more when we're both ready.
Agreed. Charlotte wiped her eyes. Though I think after today the private ship has probably sailed. Ethan's phone buzzed. A text from Rachel. Just watched the press conference. Proud of you. Lily's fine, asking about the pretty lady. Let me know when you're ready to talk. Relief washed over him. Lily was okay. The world hadn't ended. They'd survived the press conference, and maybe, just maybe, they could survive whatever came next. I need to go get Lily, Ethan said.
Rachel's been watching her and she's probably confused about why I'm all over the news. What will you tell her? Ethan considered. The truth in 5-year-old terms. That some people are asking questions about you and me, but everything's okay. That adults sometimes have complicated situations, but what matters is being honest and kind. Charlotte stood with him. Can I see her? Later, I mean. Not today. She's probably had enough chaos. But soon? She'd like that. She's been asking about you. They walked to the parking garage together, and Ethan was acutely aware that any remaining reporters might be photographing this moment too. But he didn't care anymore. Let them take pictures. Let them write their articles. The truth was out, and he and Charlotte were facing it together. Before he got in his car, Charlotte caught his hand. Ethan, thank you for standing beside me today, for not running when any sane person would have.
Maybe I'm not sane, Ethan said, smiling. Or maybe I just finally figured out that the best things in life are usually the ones that scare you the most. She kissed him then, brief and soft, but full of promise. When she pulled back, both of them were smiling. We're going to be okay, Charlotte said. And for the first time in days, Ethan believed it. The next weeks were a strange blur of adjustment. Charlotte officially stepped down as CEO, and the board appointed David Morrison as interim leader while they searched for a permanent replacement. The stock price stabilized, then slowly began recovering as investors realized the company's fundamentals were still strong despite the leadership chaos. Marcus Ashford and his family found themselves under federal investigation for the pension fraud. The whistleblower Charlotte had protected came forward publicly, providing testimony that supported the criminal case. Marcus's lawyers tried to paint Charlotte's allegations as revenge for the broken engagement, but the evidence was overwhelming. Within a month, 3 Ashford executives had been indicted, and Marcus himself was facing serious legal consequences. The media coverage shifted gradually from scandal to vindication. Think pieces appeared praising Charlotte's courage in exposing fraud despite personal cost. Her resignation was reframed as a strategic sacrifice rather than a shameful retreat. But the damage to her reputation lingered. Women in tech forums debated whether she'd been unfairly punished for behavior men would have been celebrated for, while critics maintained she'd shown poor judgment in mixing personal and professional matters. Ethan returned to work, enduring the whispers and sideways glances with as much grace as he could muster. Some coworkers treated him normally. Others avoided him or made pointed comments about workplace relationships and special treatment. He focused on his work, let his results speak for themselves, and tried not to let the hostile environment get under his skin. Through it all, he and Charlotte navigated their relationship carefully, mindful of Lily's needs and the public scrutiny. They had quiet dinners at Ethan's apartment, took Lily to the park on weekends, watched movies curled up on his couch after Lily went to bed. Simple domestic moments that felt precious precisely because they were private and real. 6 weeks after the press conference, Charlotte invited Ethan and Lily to the Vale family's annual winter gala, a company tradition that Robert had insisted continue, despite Charlotte no longer being CEO. It would be their first public appearance together as a couple at a company event, and Ethan knew it would set the tone for how people perceived their relationship going forward. "You don't have to go," Charlotte said when she extended the invitation. "I know it'll be awkward, being surrounded by Vale employees and board members who all have opinions about us." "I want to go," Ethan said. "But Charlotte, I think we should bring Lily." Charlotte's eyes widened. "Really? I thought you wanted to keep her separate from the public stuff." "I did. I do." Ethan struggled to articulate what he was feeling. "But she's part of my life, and you're becoming part of my life, and hiding those two things from each other feels wrong."
Plus, it's a winter gala. There will be other families there, other kids. It might actually be fun for her. And you're ready for people to see us as a family unit? Because that's what it'll look like. Ethan took Charlotte's hand. I'm ready to stop hiding what we are, whatever that means. The night of the gala, Ethan stood in front of his bathroom mirror adjusting his tie for the 5th time, nerves making his hands clumsy. He'd rented a tux, his first time wearing one since his wedding to Sarah. The reminder made his chest ache, guilt mixing with anticipation in a way that felt impossible to untangle. "Daddy, you look fancy." Lily appeared in the doorway, spinning in the dark blue velvet dress Charlotte had sent over, age-appropriate but beautiful, making Lily feel like a princess without being over the top. "You look beautiful, sweetheart." Ethan knelt to her level. "Remember what we talked about? There's going to be a lot of people at this party, and some of them might want to take pictures or ask questions. If anyone makes you uncomfortable, you tell me immediately, okay?" "Okay." Lily tilted her head. "Is Charlotte going to be there?" "She'll be there. In fact, she's the one who invited us." "Because she's your girlfriend?" Lily asked with the straightforward curiosity of children. Ethan's breath caught. He and Charlotte had been careful not to define their relationship explicitly around Lily, wanting to give things time to develop before making it official in a 5-year-old's mind. But apparently Lily had drawn her own conclusions. "Yes," he said, deciding honesty was better than evasion. "Charlotte is my girlfriend. How do you feel about that?" Lily considered seriously. "I like her. She's nice to me, and she doesn't talk to me like I'm a baby, and she makes you smile more." "I smile plenty. Not like you do when she's here." Lily threw her arms around his neck. "It's okay, Daddy. I want you to be happy. Mommy would want that too." Ethan held his daughter close, overwhelmed by her perceptiveness and generosity. "You're pretty amazing. You know that." "I know," Lily said matter-of-factly, making Ethan laugh through the tears threatening to spill. The gala was held at the Grand Meridian Hotel, the same venue where Charlotte's wedding was supposed to have taken place. Ethan felt the irony keenly as they entered the ballroom, which had been transformed with thousands of white lights and winter decorations. The space was packed with Vail Innovations employees, board members, investors, and their families. Charlotte stood near the entrance greeting guests, stunning in a floor-length emerald gown that made her eyes luminous. When she saw Ethan and Lily approaching, her entire face lit up. "You made it." She knelt down to Lily's level. "And look at you. You look absolutely beautiful." "You look beautiful too," Lily said shyly. "Like a real princess this time, not just a pretend one." Charlotte laughed, delighted. "Why, thank you. Would you like to see the dessert table? I made sure they had chocolate cake because someone told me it's your favorite." As Charlotte led Lily toward the refreshments, Ethan felt someone approach from his left. He turned to find David Morrison, the interim CEO, holding 2 glasses of champagne. "Ethan, glad you could make it." David offered him one of the glasses. "I wanted to talk to you, actually." Here it comes, Ethan thought. The awkward conversation about his relationship with Charlotte, the concerns about workplace dynamics, maybe even a suggestion that he consider transferring to a different department to avoid conflict of interest. But David surprised him. "I've been reviewing the educational tablet division's performance. Your team's work is exceptional. Sales up 42% year over year, customer satisfaction scores through the roof, and you just landed the contract with the New York City school system. That's massive." "Thank you. My team worked incredibly hard on that proposal." "I can tell." David paused. "Look, I know these past few weeks have been difficult for you professionally, the gossip, the speculation. But I want you to know that as far as I'm concerned, your work speaks for itself. Charlotte promoted you because you earned it, and you've proven her judgment sound every quarter since." Ethan felt some of the tension leave his shoulders. "I appreciate that. I also want you to know that whatever happens between you and Charlotte personally is your business. As long as there are no ethics violations, which there haven't been, the company has no grounds to interfere." David glanced across the room to where Charlotte was laughing at something Lily had said. "She seems happier than I've seen her in years." That matters too. After David moved on to greet other guests, Ethan made his way to Charlotte and Lily. A small crowd had gathered around them.
mostly other employees with children, drawn by Lily's infectious enthusiasm as she described the elaborate ice sculptures decorating the room. "And that one looks like a dragon," Lily was saying, pointing to a particularly intricate sculpture.
Dragons are scientifically impossible because fire breathing would require a biological mechanism that doesn't exist in nature, but they're still cool. An older woman Ethan recognized as Patricia Langley, the board member, laughed. "Someone's been watching nature documentaries." "Daddy lets me watch them before bed instead of regular stories sometimes," Lily explained. "Last night we learned about deep-sea creatures that make their own light. Did you know that?"
"I did not," Patricia said, smiling at Ethan. "You're raising quite the scientist." Charlotte caught Ethan's eye across the group, her expression warm and proud. In that moment, surrounded by people who'd spent weeks speculating about their relationship, seeing Charlotte with his daughter and his colleagues, Ethan felt something settle into place. This was right. Complicated and messy and probably going to involve more challenges, but fundamentally, essentially right. The evening progressed with surprising ease. Lily charmed everyone she met, her natural curiosity and lack of filter making her a favorite among the board members and executives. Charlotte stayed close, introducing Ethan to people he'd only known by reputation, always including him in conversations as an equal rather than a subordinate. When the dancing started, Charlotte extended her hand to Ethan. "May I have this dance?" He hesitated, acutely aware of all the eyes that would be watching.
Their first dance together in public, at a company event, surrounded by people who'd gossiped about them for weeks. It felt momentous and terrifying. "Everyone's watching," he said quietly. "I know." Charlotte's smile was gentle. "But Ethan, they're going to watch and speculate regardless. We can either hide and fuel more rumors, or we can be honest about what we are. Your choice." Ethan looked at Lily, who was dancing enthusiastically with Robert Vale a few feet away, both of them laughing. His daughter was happy. Charlotte made him happy. The rest, the gossip, the judgment, the complications, seemed suddenly less important than this moment, this choice. He took Charlotte's hand. "Let's dance." They moved to the center of the floor, and Ethan was intensely aware of conversations stopping, heads turning. But as Charlotte stepped into his arms and they began swaying to the music, the watching crowd faded into background noise. There was only this, Charlotte's hand in his, her smile bright and genuine, the warmth of her closeness. "People are definitely talking," Charlotte murmured. "Let them talk." Ethan pulled her slightly closer. "I'm done hiding how I feel about you." "How do you feel about me?" Ethan looked into her eyes, seeing vulnerability there despite all her confidence. "I feel like you walked into my life at exactly the moment I'd given up on anything beyond safe and ordinary. I feel like you reminded me that being brave enough to want more is worth the risk. I feel like—" He stopped, the words catching in his throat. Too soon to say it, surely. Too fast, too intense, too much given everything they'd already been through. But Charlotte's eyes were glistening, and her smile was tremulous and real. "Say it." "I love you," Ethan said quietly. "I'm in love with you, Charlotte Vale. Former CEO, current board member, future whatever you decide to be. I love who you are and who you're becoming, and I'm not afraid to say it anymore." Charlotte's breath hitched. "I love you too. I have for so long, and I'm so grateful you gave me the chance to actually show it." They kissed, soft and brief, mindful of Lily dancing nearby and the crowd watching. But it was enough. A public declaration, a commitment, a promise that whatever came next, they would face it together. When the song ended, applause rippled through the ballroom. Not mocking or scandalized, but genuine. People celebrating something real and honest in a world that often rewarded neither. Ethan looked around, seeing smiles on familiar faces, acceptance replacing judgment. It wasn't universal. He caught a few disapproving looks, heard whispered comments that probably weren't kind. But for every critic, there were two people whose expressions reflected understanding or approval. People who recognized that love doesn't follow convenient timelines or corporate hierarchies. People who understood that sometimes the bravest thing you can do is choose happiness, even when it's complicated. Lily ran over, tugging on Charlotte's dress. "Can I dance with you now?" Charlotte laughed, sweeping Lily into a dance that was more spinning and giggling than actual rhythm. Ethan watched them together, his heart so full it ached. This was his family now, unconventional, complicated, built from crisis and honesty and courage, but family nonetheless. Robert Vale appeared beside Ethan, watching his daughter dance with Lily. You know, when Charlotte was young, she used to dance like that. Absolutely no regard for the music, just pure joy. What changed? Ethan asked. She grew up, took on responsibilities, became the person everyone needed her to be. Robert's expression was thoughtful. But watching her now with you and your daughter, I see glimpses of that joy again. The girl who danced for the pleasure of dancing, not because it was expected. She's finding her way back to that. Thanks to you. Robert turned to face Ethan fully. I meant what I said before. You're good for her. You remind her that there's more to life than quarterly earnings and market share. That's a gift. She's a gift to me too, Ethan said honestly. She makes me want to be braver, to reach for more than just safe and stable. Robert smiled. Then I'd say you're good for each other. As the evening wound down, Lily fell asleep against Ethan's shoulder, exhausted from dancing and excitement. Charlotte walked them to their car, the winter air crisp and clean after the warmth of the ballroom. Thank you for coming tonight, Charlotte said softly, for being willing to face everyone publicly. I know it wasn't easy. It was easier than hiding. Ethan adjusted his hold on Lily, careful not to wake her. Charlotte, I meant what I said in there. I love you, and I want this, us, whatever shape that takes, to work. It will work. Charlotte sounded certain. It won't be perfect or easy, but it'll work because we're both committed to honesty and each other. That's enough. She kissed him goodnight, gentle and sweet, then stroked Lily's hair with a tenderness that made Ethan's throat tight. Take care of your princess, Prince Charming, always. Driving home through the quiet streets, Lily stirring occasionally in her car seat, Ethan felt peace settle over him. The past weeks had been chaos, scandal, resignation, public scrutiny, professional judgment, but they'd survived. More than that, they'd emerged stronger, more certain of what mattered. Tomorrow would bring new challenges. Charlotte still faced legal battles with Marcus's family. Ethan still worked in an office where some people would never fully accept his relationship with the former CEO. Public perception would continue to shift and speculate. But tonight, driving through the winter darkness with his daughter sleeping peacefully and the memory of Charlotte's kiss still warm on his lips, Ethan chose to focus on what they'd built rather than what they'd lost. They'd chosen honesty over convenience, love over safety, each other over easier options. And somehow, impossibly, it was working. The weeks following the gala brought an unexpected gift: normalcy. Not the manufactured calm of crisis management or the fragile peace of scandal dying down, but genuine, ordinary life. Charlotte became a regular presence in Ethan's apartment, helping with homework, attending Lily's kindergarten concerts, learning to make grilled cheese the way Lily insisted was scientifically superior, with the crust cut into triangles. Spring arrived with the kind of gentle insistence that made even the cynical believe in new beginnings. Vale Innovations stock had recovered to pre-scandal levels, and the company announced record quarterly earnings under David Morrison's steady interim leadership. Marcus Ashford's trial date was set for late summer, and the media had largely moved on to newer scandals, newer headlines. But 3 months after the winter gala, on a Tuesday morning that started like any other, Ethan's carefully rebuilt peace shattered. He was in a product development meeting when his phone buzzed with an urgent message from Patricia Chen, his lawyer. The text contained just a link to a breaking news story. Ethan's stomach dropped as he read the headline. Marcus Ashford lawyers file civil suit against Charlotte Vale and Ethan Cole, claiming tortious interference, defamation, and conspiracy to defraud. The article detailed a lawsuit seeking $200 million in damages, alleging that Charlotte and Ethan had conspired to destroy the merger, that they'd fabricated evidence of pension fraud, and that their relationship had begun months before the wedding as part of a calculated plan to sabotage Marcus's reputation and business prospects. Ethan excused himself from the meeting, his hands shaking as he called Charlotte. She answered immediately, her voice tight. "You've seen it." "Charlotte, this is insane. They're claiming we conspired together. I know what they're claiming. My lawyers have been on the phone with Marcus's legal team all morning. They're trying to force a settlement by making the allegations so damaging that we'll pay to make them go away." Can they actually prove any of this? No, because none of it's true. But Ethan, her voice cracked slightly. They're going after you financially, personally. They're claiming you used inside knowledge of the company to help me sabotage the merger, that you personally benefited from the scandal. They're requesting access to your financial records, your employment history, your communications with me going back 2 years. Ethan felt the walls closing in. They're trying to destroy me to get to you. They're trying to destroy both of us, and they're using the court system to do it because they know even fighting this will cost hundreds of thousands in legal fees. They want to bleed us dry. After the call ended, Ethan sat in the empty conference room trying to process the implications. A lawsuit of this magnitude could take years to resolve, years of depositions and legal fees and having every aspect of his life examined under a microscope. Years of explaining to Lily why her father's name kept appearing in news stories alongside words like conspiracy and fraud. His phone rang again. Rachel this time. Ethan, I just saw the news. Please tell me you have good lawyers. I have Patricia Chen. Charlotte has a whole legal team, but Rachel, this could bankrupt me. Even if we win the legal fees alone, then you settle. You walk away, you protect yourself and Lily. I can't just abandon Charlotte. You have a daughter who depends on you. Rachel's voice rose, fear sharpening her tone. Ethan, I love that you want to be loyal, but you're talking about potentially losing everything to fight a billionaire family's lawyers. Think about what's best for Lily. After hanging up, Ethan stayed in that conference room for another hour, his mind churning through impossible choices. Fight the lawsuit and risk financial ruin. Settle and abandon Charlotte to face the Ashfords alone. There was no good option, no path that didn't require sacrificing something fundamental. That evening, Charlotte came to his apartment. Lily was at a playdate with a school friend, giving them privacy to discuss the lawsuit without small ears overhearing. Charlotte looked exhausted, her usual polish dimmed by stress. My lawyers say we can fight this, she said, accepting the coffee Ethan handed her. The allegations are baseless. We have documentation proving the pension fraud was real, witnesses willing to testify, timestamps on everything. Marcus is grasping at straws because the criminal case against him is airtight. But fighting it takes time and money. I have money, plenty of it. Charlotte set down her cup. Ethan, I can cover your legal fees, all of them. You shouldn't have to pay for this when Marcus is only targeting you to hurt me. I can't let you do that. Why not? Because Ethan struggled to articulate the tangle of pride and principle. Because then it looks like you're buying my loyalty, like I'm some kept man you're supporting financially. It feeds right into the narrative Marcus is creating, that I'm using you, that I've been using you all along. Charlotte's eyes flashed. That's pride talking, not logic. Ethan, Marcus is a vindictive man with unlimited resources trying to destroy us both. Taking my help isn't weakness, it's strategy. And what happens if we lose? If somehow, despite all the evidence, a jury believes Marcus's story, you could be bankrupt too. Your board position, your reputation, everything you salvaged from the scandal, gone. Then we lose together. Charlotte reached across the table, taking his hand. Ethan, I'm not going to let you fight this alone to protect some principle about financial independence. We're in this together, remember? That was the promise we made. Before Ethan could respond, his phone rang. An unknown number. He almost ignored it, but something made him answer. Mr. Cole? This is Jennifer Harrison from the Ashford family legal team. The woman's voice was crisp, professional. I'm calling to offer you an opportunity to settle your portion of the lawsuit separately from Ms. Vale. Ethan's blood ran cold. What kind of settlement? If you're willing to testify that Ms. Vale initiated the relationship between you, that she used her position to influence you, and that she expressed doubts about the merger's validity before discovering the pension irregularities, essentially corroborating that her decision to leave the wedding was premeditated rather than based on newly discovered fraud, we'll drop all claims against you personally. No damages sought, legal fees covered, your name cleared. You want me to lie under oath and throw Charlotte under the bus. We want you to tell the truth about the timeline of events, Mr. Cole. Surely you can see the position you're in. You have a young daughter to support, limited financial resources, a career that's already been damaged by this scandal. Why sacrifice everything for a woman who, let's be honest, was using you as an excuse to escape an engagement she'd regretted for months?
Charlotte didn't use me, didn't she? Think about it logically.
A powerful CEO, trapped in an engagement she never wanted, suddenly discovers fraud right before her wedding, then runs to the home of a subordinate she barely knew outside work, claims she has feelings for him that conveniently justify leaving her fiancé. And you expect us to believe that's genuine rather than calculated? Ethan's grip on the phone tightened. I know what happened. I was there.
Were you? Or did you see what Charlotte needed you to see? Jennifer's voice softened, became almost sympathetic. Mr. Cole, I'm not trying to villainize you. I think you're a decent man who got caught up in something bigger than you understood. This is your chance to walk away clean. Take it. And if I don't, then we proceed with the lawsuit. And I promise you, our investigation will be thorough.
Every email you sent Charlotte, every meeting you attended, every decision she made that benefited you professionally, all of it will be examined and questioned. By the time we're done, even if you win, your reputation will be destroyed and your bank account empty. Is that really what you want for your daughter? The call ended and Ethan sat frozen, the phone still pressed to his ear. Charlotte was watching him with growing concern. What did they say? Ethan told her. Every word of the offer, every implication, every threat. When he finished, Charlotte's face had gone pale. They're trying to turn you against me. I know. Ethan, you can't. You wouldn't. She couldn't seem to finish the sentence, fear stealing her words. Of course I wouldn't. Ethan moved to sit beside her. Charlotte, I'm not going to lie about you to save myself. That's not who I am. But they're right about one thing. Charlotte's voice was hollow. If you fight this with me, it could destroy your finances. Lily's college fund, your savings, everything. And for what? To protect my reputation when I'm the one who brought this chaos into your life in the first place? You didn't bring chaos. You brought honesty. There's a difference. Charlotte stood abruptly, pacing to his window. Maybe you should take the deal. What? Not the lying part, but maybe you should settle separately, distance yourself from me legally. We could still be together privately, but publicly you'd be protected. No. Ethan stood too, his voice firm. Absolutely not. That's exactly what they want. To split us up, to make me look like I abandoned you when things got hard. It would confirm every nasty thing people have said about our relationship. Better that than you losing everything trying to defend me. Charlotte, look at me. Ethan waited until she met his eyes. I love you, not because of what you can give me or what you represent. I love who you are. Flawed and brave and honest enough to blow up your own life rather than live a lie. I'm not going to abandon that person just because staying is expensive and complicated. Tears spilled down Charlotte's cheeks. You're being stupid, gallant and wonderful and completely stupid. Probably. Ethan pulled her into his arms. But I'd rather be stupid and honest than smart and compromised. We fight this together, or we don't fight at all. The next morning, Ethan and Charlotte met with their combined legal teams. Patricia Chen laid out the reality with brutal clarity. Fighting the lawsuit would likely cost each of them upwards of $300,000 in legal fees, take at least 18 months to get to trial, and involve invasive discovery that would expose every aspect of their lives to scrutiny. However, Patricia continued, we have significant advantages. The pension fraud is documented and multiple Ashford executives have already pled guilty. We can prove Charlotte discovered it through legitimate forensic accounting. And the timeline of your relationship, while fast, doesn't show any evidence of conspiracy or prior affair. Charlotte's lead attorney, a sharp-eyed woman named Diana Torres, nodded agreement. The Ashfords are betting we'll settle to avoid the publicity and expense. But if we fight and win, we can countersue for malicious prosecution and probably collect damages that would offset our legal costs. Probably isn't certainty, Ethan said. What's the worst-case scenario if we lose? Diana didn't sugarcoat it. Worst case? The jury believes the conspiracy narrative. You both pay the full $200 million in damages, which would bankrupt you, Ethan, and severely damage Charlotte's finances. Plus, you'd face potential criminal investigation for fraud and perjury if the verdict implied you lied under oath. The room went silent. The stakes were impossibly high. Fight and risk complete ruin, or settle and let the Ashfords rewrite history as they pleased. There's one other option, Patricia said carefully.
We file a countersuit immediately, alleging that Marcus knew about the pension fraud before the wedding and that his proposal to Charlotte was itself a calculated attempt to access Vail Innovations capital to cover his crimes. We go on offense instead of just playing defense. Charlotte leaned forward. Can we prove that? The forensic accounting team found emails between Marcus and his CFO discussing the pension situation 3 weeks before he proposed to you. They're not smoking guns, but they're suggestive enough to create reasonable doubt about his motives. Ethan watched Charlotte process this information, seeing the executive strategist resurface. If we countersue, we control the narrative. We're not victims defending ourselves. We're whistleblowers who exposed fraud and are now being punished for it. Exactly. Diana smiled. It's riskier, but it puts them on the defensive, and it gives us leverage to negotiate a better settlement if it comes to that. Over the next week, the legal teams prepared their countersuit. The filing made national news. Charlotte Vail and Ethan Cole weren't just defending against the Ashford allegations. They were actively accusing Marcus of using the marriage proposal as a cover for financial crimes. The media loved the drama, painting it as a battle between old money dynasty and new tech ethics. But the real battle was happening behind the scenes, in Ethan's daily life. Lily's kindergarten teacher pulled him aside one afternoon, her expression troubled. Mr. Cole, I wanted to let you know that some of the other parents have been talking about the news stories, and a few of the children have said things to Lily. Ethan's hands clenched. What kind of things? Nothing terrible, but questions about why her daddy is on TV, whether it's true that he and Ms. Vail did something wrong. Lily handled it well. She told them her daddy is a good person and the TV people are confused, but I thought you should know. That evening, Ethan sat Lily down for the conversation he'd been dreading. She was 6 now, old enough to understand more than he wished she did. Sweetheart, you know how sometimes Charlotte and I are in the news? Lily nodded, her expression serious. Some kids at school said you're in trouble. Are you? Some people think I am, but they're wrong. They don't understand what really happened, so they're telling stories that aren't true. Like when Emma said I pushed her on the playground, but really she tripped? Exactly like that. Sometimes people believe the wrong story at first, but eventually the truth comes out. Lily considered this, then asked the question Ethan had been terrified of. Is Charlotte going to go away? Like Mommy did? Ethan's throat tightened. Oh, baby, no. Charlotte isn't sick like Mommy was. She's healthy, and she's staying right here. But what if the people who think you're in trouble make her leave? That's not going to happen. Ethan pulled Lily into his lap. Charlotte and I are fighting to make sure everyone knows the truth. It might take a while, but we're not giving up. And she's not going anywhere. Promise? Ethan thought about all the ways that promise could break. The lawsuit could drive Charlotte away. The stress could fracture their relationship. Any number of disasters could tear them apart. But looking at his daughter's worried face, he chose faith over fear. I promise, sweetheart. Charlotte loves us, and we love her. That's not going to change. 2 months into the legal battle, Marcus Ashford's criminal trial began. Charlotte and Ethan attended as witnesses and observers, sitting in the courtroom gallery as prosecutors laid out the evidence of pension fraud with devastating clarity. The whistleblower, a mid-level accountant named Thomas Chen, who'd risked his career to expose the truth, testified about discovering the irregular transfers and being told to stay quiet or face termination. When Charlotte took the stand, Ethan watched her transform back into the CEO, who'd commanded boardrooms and conquered markets. She answered questions with precision and clarity, walking the jury through how she'd discovered the fraud, the timeline of her investigation, and her decision to cancel the wedding. Did you love Marcus Ashford? The prosecutor asked. No, Charlotte said simply. I cared about him as a person, but I didn't love him. I agreed to marry him because it made sense professionally, because our families and boards supported it, because it was the logical choice. But when I discovered he'd been hiding fraud, I realized I couldn't marry someone I didn't trust, regardless of the professional benefits. And Mr. Cole? The prosecutor gestured to Ethan. What role did he play in your decision? None, initially. I made the decision to leave the wedding before I went to his home that evening. Ethan didn't influence that choice. He simply reminded me that there's more to life than logic and strategy.
that honesty and integrity matter more than convenience. Marcus's defense attorney tried to paint Charlotte as an emotionally unstable woman who'd manufactured the fraud allegations to justify an impulsive decision. But the documentary evidence was overwhelming, and by the third week of trial, even Marcus's own lawyers looked defeated. The jury deliberated for 6 hours. When they returned with guilty verdicts on all counts, fraud, embezzlement, conspiracy, Charlotte grabbed Ethan's hand so tightly his fingers went numb. "It's over," she whispered. "The criminal case is over." But their civil lawsuit was still pending, and Marcus's family was still fighting. Until one afternoon in late summer when Diana Torres called with unexpected news. "The Ashfords want to settle. They're dropping the lawsuit entirely in exchange for you both signing ND. As about the criminal case and agreeing not to pursue your countersuit." Ethan met Charlotte's eyes across his kitchen table, where they'd been reviewing legal documents. "They're giving up?" Marcus's conviction destroyed their credibility. No jury is going to believe their conspiracy theory when their own son was convicted of the exact fraud Charlotte exposed. They're cutting their losses. "What about the NDAs?" Charlotte asked. "What exactly would we be agreeing not to discuss?" "Just the details of the criminal case. Nothing that isn't already public record. They're trying to prevent you from writing tell-all books or giving interviews about Marcus's fraud. Standard face-saving measures." After Diana hung up, Charlotte and Ethan sat in silence for a long moment. The lawsuit that had dominated their lives for 6 months was simply over. No trial, no dramatic confrontation, just a quiet agreement and signatures on documents. "We won," Charlotte said, sounding almost disbelieving. "We survived," Ethan corrected. "That's better than winning." That evening they told Lily together. She'd been anxious for months, her 6-year-old mind unable to fully understand the legal complexities but sensing her father's stress. When Ethan explained that the people who were confused had realized they were wrong and everything was okay now, Lily's entire face lit up. "Does this mean Charlotte can come to my school play next week? I want her to see me be a tree in the forest scene." Charlotte laughed, pulling Lily into a hug. "I wouldn't miss it for anything. Though I have to say, casting you as a tree seems like a waste of your dramatic talents." "I'm a very important tree," Lily said seriously. "I provide oxygen and habitat for woodland creatures. My teacher said so." Watching them together, Ethan felt the last knot of anxiety in his chest finally loosen. They'd made it through. The scandal, the lawsuit, the media scrutiny, the financial stress. They'd survived all of it, and somehow their relationship had emerged stronger rather than shattered. Later, after Lily was asleep, Charlotte and Ethan stood on his small balcony looking out at the city lights. The evening was warm, summer fading into autumn, and the world felt full of possibility in a way it hadn't in months. "What happens now?" Charlotte asked. "We've been in crisis mode for so long, I'm not sure I remember how to just live normally." "I think we figure it out together." Ethan pulled her closer. "You're still deciding what to do professionally. I'm still working at Vail. Lily's starting 1st grade next month. We just see where life takes us." Charlotte was quiet for a moment, then said softly, "I've been thinking about starting a foundation, using my Vail shares and resources to fund ethical technology education, support whistleblowers, maybe even help employees whose companies have committed pension fraud like Ashford did. That sounds perfect for you, meaningful work that aligns with your values. It won't be a billion-dollar company. It won't come with the prestige or power of being a CEO. But it'll be yours, chosen freely, built on what you actually care about rather than what you're supposed to care about." Ethan turned her to face him. "Charlotte, you spent your whole life building what everyone else thought you should build. Maybe it's time to build something just for you." She kissed him then, deep and unhurried, and Ethan tasted relief and joy and promise in it. When they finally pulled apart, Charlotte was smiling in a way that made her look younger, freer. "There's something else I've been thinking about," she said. "Something I want to talk to you and Lily about, but I wasn't sure if it was too soon." Ethan's heart started beating faster. "What is it?" "I love being with you and Lily. The evenings in your apartment, the weekend adventures, the quiet domesticity. But I'm always leaving at the end of the night, going back to my empty penthouse. And She took a breath. "I don't want to keep leaving. I want to be part of your daily life, not just a visitor." So I was wondering, what would you think about us looking for a place together? Something that's ours. Not mine or yours, but ours. Big enough for all of us, with room for Lily to grow and space for my home office and maybe even a yard. Ethan felt his breath catch, moving in together, making it official, making it permanent. It was huge and terrifying and exactly what he wanted. I think Lily would love that, he said carefully. She's been asking why you can't just stay every night. And what about you? What do you want? I want everything. Ethan's voice was rough with emotion. I want mornings with you, not just evenings. I want to build a life together, not just date while we figure things out. I want Lily to have you as a constant, stable presence, not someone who might disappear. I want— Yes, Charlotte interrupted, laughing. Yes to all of it. Let's do it. Let's find a home and build a life and stop being so careful about what we're allowed to want. They spent the following weeks house hunting, Lily enthusiastically participating by rating each property on her own complex scale, involving proximity to parks, quality of natural light, and whether it feels like adventures could happen here. They finally found a place in a quiet neighborhood halfway between Ethan's apartment and Charlotte's penthouse, a 3-bedroom house with a yard, a study for Charlotte, and a reading nook Lily immediately claimed as her own. The moving process was chaotic and wonderful. Charlotte's expensive modern furniture mixed awkwardly with Ethan's secondhand practical pieces, leading to long debates about aesthetics versus comfort. Lily appointed herself chief decorator, insisting that every room needed at least one purple thing for proper color balance. On the first night in their new home, boxes still unpacked and furniture in temporary arrangements, the three of them sat on the floor eating pizza from paper plates because they couldn't find the actual dishes yet. This is perfect, Lily declared, tomato sauce on her cheek. We're a real family now. Charlotte's eyes met Ethan's over Lily's head, and in them he saw the same overwhelming joy mixed with disbelief. How had they gotten here? From that rainy night 9 months ago when Charlotte had appeared at his door in a wedding dress, to this. Eating pizza on the floor of their shared home, building a family from honesty and courage and love. 3 months after moving in together, on a crisp November evening, Ethan took Lily and Charlotte to the park where he and Sarah used to walk when Lily was a baby. It felt important to bring Charlotte here, to this place that held memories of his first family, to show that loving her didn't mean forgetting or replacing what he'd had before. They sat on a bench watching Lily play on the swings, and Ethan pulled out the small velvet box he'd been carrying for a week, waiting for the right moment. Charlotte, I need to tell you something. She turned to him, and whatever she saw in his face made her eyes widen. When Sarah died, I told myself I was done. One great love per lifetime, and I'd had mine. Trying for another would be greedy or disloyal or just setting myself up for more pain. He opened the box, revealing a simple diamond ring. But you taught me that love isn't finite, that choosing to love again doesn't diminish what came before. It just means you're brave enough to keep choosing life over fear. Charlotte's hands flew to her mouth, tears already streaming down her face. I love you completely. I love your brilliance and your ethics and your terrible habit of reorganizing my kitchen cabinets by efficiency metrics. I love how you make Lily feel like her questions about science and the world matter. I love that you chose truth over convenience again and again, even when it cost you everything. He took a shaky breath. Charlotte Vale, will you marry me? Yes. The word came out as half sob, half laugh. Yes, absolutely. Of course, yes. Ethan slid the ring onto her finger with shaking hands, and Charlotte kissed him with an intensity that made the world fade away. When they finally pulled apart, Lily was standing in front of them, having abandoned the swings to investigate. Did you ask her? Lily demanded. Did she say yes? She said yes, sweetheart. Lily threw her arms around both of them. Good, because I already told my teacher you were going to be my mom soon, and I didn't want to be a liar. Charlotte laughed through her tears, holding Lily tight. I would be honored to be your mom, if that's okay with you. It's very okay. But Charlotte? Lily pulled back, suddenly serious. Can I still call you Charlotte sometimes? Because that's your name, and I like it. You can call me whatever feels right to you. Charlotte, Mom, hey, you with the science answers. I'll answer to anything as long as I get to be part of your family.
They were married 6 months later in a small ceremony at the same park where Ethan had proposed. No elaborate wedding, no media circus, just 50 people who actually mattered.
Lily served as both flower girl and ring bearer, taking the dual role very seriously. Robert Vale walked Charlotte down the aisle, tears streaming down his face as he placed her hand in Ethan's. The ceremony was simple and honest, their vows reflecting everything they'd been through to reach this moment. "I promise to choose truth over convenience," Charlotte said, her voice steady despite the tears. "To be brave enough to stay when things get hard, to love your daughter as fiercely as I love you, to build a life that's authentic rather than expected." Ethan's vows were equally direct. "I promise to believe in your strength while supporting your vulnerability, to never ask you to be less than you are, to stand beside you in both triumph and crisis, to love you completely, today and every day after." When they kissed as married partners, their friends and family erupted in applause. Lily cheered loudest of all, then tugged on Charlotte's dress. "Does this mean I can call you Mom now? Like, officially?" Charlotte knelt down, heedless of her wedding dress in the grass. "Lily, I've been your mom in my heart for months. This just makes it official for everyone else, too." The reception was held in their backyard, casual and warm and full of laughter. Ethan watched Charlotte dance with Lily, both of them giggling as they attempted increasingly ridiculous moves. He watched Robert Vale give a toast about how proud his late wife would be to see Charlotte choose happiness over obligation. He watched his sister Rachel, who'd been skeptical from the start, wipe tears from her eyes as she told Charlotte, "You make my brother happier than I've seen him in years. Thank you for that." Late in the evening, when most guests had left and Lily had fallen asleep on Rachel's shoulder, Ethan and Charlotte stood in their backyard under a sky full of stars. Charlotte was still in her wedding dress, Ethan in his suit, both of them exhausted and perfectly happy. "We did it," Charlotte said softly. "We actually did it. Built something real from all that chaos." "Best decision I ever made," Ethan said, "opening that door the night you showed up in a wedding dress." "Best decision I ever made was knocking on it." Charlotte leaned her head on his shoulder. "Though in my defense, I was kind of a mess that night. Running from my own wedding in the rain, no plan, just desperate hope that maybe you'd understand." "I understood. Even when I was terrified, even when I knew it would complicate everything, I understood." Ethan wrapped his arms around her. "And I'd do it all again. Every scandal, every lawsuit, every impossible choice. All of it was worth it to end up here." They stood like that for a long time, holding each other under the stars, the house they'd chosen together warm with light behind them. Inside, their daughter, because Lily was Charlotte's daughter now, legally and completely, the adoption finalized 2 weeks before the wedding, slept peacefully, safe and loved. A year later, Charlotte's foundation was thriving, supporting technology education in underserved communities and providing legal assistance to whistleblowers facing retaliation. She'd found purpose beyond corporate success, meaning beyond market share and quarterly earnings. She was building something that mattered in ways Vale Innovations never could. Ethan had been promoted again, this time to Vice President of Innovation, a role that let him shape company culture and product development at the highest levels. His educational tablet division had expanded globally, bringing quality learning technology to millions of children who couldn't otherwise afford it. The work felt meaningful in ways his early career never had, and Lily was flourishing. At 7 years old, she was confident and curious, secure in the knowledge that she was loved by two parents who'd chosen each other and chosen her. She still drew purple goldfish and asked impossible questions about science and the universe. She still had Sarah's smile in photographs, but she also had Charlotte's fierce determination and Ethan's quiet strength. On the anniversary of the night Charlotte had appeared at Ethan's door, they recreated that first evening. Pizza made from scratch, Lily helping with the dough, Charlotte carefully not reorganizing the kitchen by efficiency metrics. After dinner, while Lily colored at the table, Ethan and Charlotte stood by the window looking out at the street. "Do you ever regret it?" Ethan asked quietly. "Everything you gave up, the CEO position, the prestige, the power?" Charlotte considered the question seriously, as she always did. "Sometimes I miss the adrenaline of high-stakes decisions, the satisfaction of closing a huge deal or launching a revolutionary product. But Ethan," she turned to face him,
I was the most successful I'd ever been and the most miserable I'd ever been at the same time. Success without authenticity is just a very well-decorated prison. And now? Now I have work that matters, a family I love, a life that's mine instead of what everyone expects it to be. I'm happier than I ever knew was possible. She smiled. Turns out the bravest decision wasn't climbing higher. It was choosing who I wanted to climb with. Ethan pulled her close, breathing in the familiar scent of her perfume, feeling the steady beat of her heart against his chest. Outside, the street was quiet. No reporters, no scandal, no crisis. Just an ordinary suburban evening in a life they'd built from impossible choices and extraordinary courage. "Daddy, Charlotte!" Lily called from the table. "Come see what I drew." They went to admire her latest creation, a family portrait featuring 3 stick figures holding hands, standing in front of a house with exactly one purple element in every window. It was beautiful in the way only a child's art could be, completely honest, joyfully imperfect, full of love. Charlotte put it on the refrigerator alongside all the other drawings, photos, and reminders of their life together. And Ethan thought about how far they'd come from that rainy night when Charlotte had knocked on his door in a wedding dress, both of them terrified and desperate and brave enough to choose truth over safety. They'd lost things along the way: Charlotte's CEO position, Ethan's comfortable anonymity, the simple life he'd built after Sarah's death, but they'd gained so much more: a family built on honesty, love that had survived public scrutiny and legal battles and every test the universe could throw at it, a partnership of equals who'd chosen each other not because it was easy or expected, but because it was real. Sometimes the bravest decision wasn't about climbing higher, Ethan reflected, pulling Charlotte close while Lily chattered about her day. It was about choosing who stood beside you when the climb got hard. And when you chose right, when you chose with courage and honesty and love, the view from anywhere, even from a modest suburban kitchen on an ordinary Tuesday, was extraordinary. Charlotte had knocked on his door seeking shelter from a storm. Instead, she'd found home. They both had. And every day since had been a choice to keep choosing each other, to keep building something authentic and beautiful and entirely their own. In the end, that was the real victory, not surviving the scandal or winning the lawsuit or defeating Marcus Ashford. The real victory was this moment, this life, this family, built from honesty, sustained by love, and absolutely, perfectly real.